Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. So, first thing, if audio and video both are working fine, please let me know. All good? Great. So, let's begin with our session. Now, today we are left with the leftovers of IT and communication chapter, and then after that, our last chapter, which is intellectual property rights. So, these are the two things to be done in today's class. And towards the end, we'll also have a look at 2023 prelims and mains questions. So, all these questions that have come in your paper, we'll analyze them. We'll try to understand why these questions were asked. More than trying to know what the answer should be, it's more about knowing why the questions were asked. So, we'll do that towards the end. So these are the things that are left in this particular chapter, sorry, this particular entire module of science and technology. Now, so most probably this will be the last class itself. I mean, I'll see if we are able to finish everything today. Otherwise, if at all something is left, maybe we can also do it tomorrow, but let's not confirm on that for now. So let's start with the session. So first thing, the first topic that we have is about mobile networks, and largely in mobile networks, this is about 5G. Now to understand what is 5G, when we say that this is 5G, 5G means what? That we are talking about the fifth generation, correct? We are talking about the fifth generation of mobile networks. That's why the term 5G. So it means that there have been four more Gs. There has been 1G, 2G, 3G, and 4G. So what has been all these uh, generations? Let's try to understand that first and then come to 5G. So first generation mobile phone is something that was introduced in 1980s. I think 1973-74 was when this technology was introduced, and in the commercial domain, it finally entered in the 1980s. And this is where you could only talk on the phone and nothing else. So this is where we saw that the speeds were very less, and it supported only voice. All right, it supported only voice and nothing. So no internet, no data, nothing. Then comes 2G mobile phone network, which was introduced in the 1990s. And this is where we see that the speeds now go up to 50 kbps, and it now starts to support both voice and data, meaning that now you would be able to use the internet on your mobile phone. Now, this was a big change. This was a big introduction to the entire journey of mobile phone networks. And 2G networks in India, it came late. I mean, it would have come, I think, early 2000s is when it also was introduced in India. Now, if you have used 2G internet back then, I'm not sure how many of you have used the so-called 2G internet. If you have used, you know the virtue of patience. That what patience means and what it means to try and search something. Let's say if you had to do a simple Google search, you probably will have to search it, go have your lunch, come back. By the time the search would start showing the result. So that was the era of 2G mobile phone networks. But still, 2G mobile phone networks, even then, it was a big thing to have. It was a privilege for us that we had a mobile phone internet. So that's why we did not complain that this was slow internet or anything like that, because we did not even know what fast internet could mean. That is, there something called as fast internet? It was not a concept that the world was introduced to yet. So that was second generation mobile phone network. And then we see the third generation mobile phone network comes, and this is where the speeds improve drastically to now 3.1 mbps. So of course it supports both voice and data, but now you would be able to use the internet much more, and now it becomes way more applicable in one's daily life as compared to whatever it was until now. And you could probably also start watching videos now on YouTube, etc. So all that starts functioning now with the introduction of 3G. Then comes the 4G network, where speeds drastically improve, and the speeds go on to 100 mbps now. 100 mbps. So 100 mbps speeds now mean that video buffering will be now possible. That live streaming of the videos will be possible now. These kind of lectures that you're watching on the mobile phone networks, if you are, then it's possible now with 4G. Until 3G also you might have struggled, but with 4G we see that that struggle is over. And with mobile phone data also, this becomes possible. So of course this also supports both voice and data, but there is a very important introduction in the fourth generation mobile phone networks. And this introduction was because until now we had a technology called as LTE, that is long term evolution. And then comes another new term, that is VoLTE, voice over long term evolution. Now, when it comes to LTE and VoLTE, until 3G, until 4G, till the first part of 4G, we had this LTE. Now, this LTE is where we, until LTE was there, you could either talk on the phone or use the internet. You can't do both at the same time. And you might have observed this, that with the earlier internet connections that you had on the phone, if you are talking to somebody on the phone, the internet connections will be disrupted. And only when you disconnect the call, your internet connection comes back. Correct? This is what it was. So overall, we see that this is where we see that it supports both voice and data, but you could either use voice or use data. You could not use both at the same time. And if you have called somebody or somebody has called you, then the internet connection got disrupted. This was the case until LTE. So this stands for long term evolution. LTE standing for long term evolution. Now, in this particular regard, when we look at VoLTE stands for voice over LTE. So voice over LTE meaning that now you can talk on the phone and use the internet both at the same time. All right. So until now that was not possible with, but with VoLTE now this becomes possible, that you can talk on the phone and use the internet, and you can do that, both of that at the same time. So that was a big introduction to the mobile phone networks, that now you can keep talking on the phone while scrolling your Instagram. So that's why now it all becomes possible that both can work at the same time. So overall, when it comes to the generations of mobile phone, this is where a new introduction comes in 2019, where the speed now increases to up to 10 gbps, and of course it supports both voice and data, and with VoLTE of course. So now we see that there is a huge improvement, and this is where now the mobile phone networks and the internet connections, they are going beyond just the personal use. So it's not only some basic personal use for which you will be able to use mobile phones now, but it goes beyond that. There are basic applications, I mean areas of application beyond personal networks, that now with 5G becomes possible. So with 5G introduction, we see that 5G network is where we are using the radio waves to transmit and receive the data, and it is estimated that it will have space for more than 7 trillion devices in total. Overall, you get better speeds, you get better coverage, you get lesser latency, and very high scalability, meaning that your reach can even increase further than where we are right now. And overall, it is estimated that it might be able to reach up to 88 million by 2025. So in India. So that's why the number of connections, we see that there are a lot of steps also being taken to ensure that we can improve upon the connection rates as quickly as possible. Now, when it comes to 5G network, also understand how exactly it works, and there are certain properties that make it very, very important, because of which we are able to see improvements in speed, etc. So, what exactly is that? Let's try to understand that. Now, until now, if you have observed, you might have seen that there are mobile phone towers in your locality. Every half a kilometer, every 1 kilometer, maybe some building, some rooftop, somewhere, you might see that there are mobile phone towers, correct? And these mobile phone towers, they have been catering to 4G, and before that 3G and 2G, etc. But in case of 5G, these mobile phone towers, they are not that effective. They are not the only mobile phone towers that will have to work here. Apart from that, there are small cell towers also that have to work, and these small cell towers will have to have a very huge, or you can say very wide density, meaning that every locality will have to have its own small cell, so that 5G networks can be transmitted via that small cell. So that's why it's not only the installation of the big mobile phone towers that we have until now, but there are these small cells also that have to be installed. And these small cells become the reason for you getting those higher speeds. But unfortunately, these small towers, they do not have very high, uh, they do not have very long ranges. So for example, let's say if we are talking about any locality, suppose that there are these houses in any given locality, there are all these houses, and suppose that the roads are running like this, right? Let's say the roads are running like this. All right, so let's say the roads are running like this. Now if the roads are running like this, let's say there are all these roads that you have. So overall what happens now is that, uh, in this regard, so for example, so let's say you have all these roads. All right, so let's say we have all these roads and you have a small cell tower placed somewhere, let's say here. You have one small cell tower that has been placed here. So now this small cell tower will be able to cover this area well. It will be able to cover uh, this area well. Sorry, I messed up the roots. Yeah. So let's say it will be able to cover these areas well, but this area it cannot cover well. This area it cannot cover well. So it can cover this area, it can cover this area well, but this area it cannot cover well. So overall what happens is that, you will have to install more of these cell towers. So you, for example, let's say you have another cell tower here. So this is able to cover this area, this is able to cover this area, cover this area, cover this area, but not able to cover this area well, not able to cover this area well, not able to cover this area well. So this is how we see that, these small cell towers work. So that's why we need to densify the network, meaning that we need to increase the density of this network with the help of these small cell towers. So that's why, as you can see here also, that you have one big cell tower accompanied with a lot of small cell towers which are installed in the entire area, so that 5G connections can be provided better. So in this manner we see that this is how the things work, and this is how we would be trying to ensure that the network connectivity is great at every part. Now overall, when it comes to 5G networks, there are, just understand that there are all these properties that become very crucial. So first, we are using higher frequency bands. We're using higher frequency bands. So as you can see that with 4G, with 4G, we were using only this much of frequency band, but now we aren't using only the higher frequencies, sorry, the lower frequencies, we are also using the higher frequencies as well. So that's why there are, so you had only the smaller, the larger wavelengths being used here in case of 4G. Now the smaller wavelengths are also being used. So this is where you were using larger wavelengths only, or let me write it separately. So in case of 4G, we were using larger wavelengths only. In case of 5G, now we are using large and small wavelengths. But still only radio. Just remember that. Still only we are using the radio waves. It's not that we are using something else. This is also radio, this is also radio. So still we are using radio waves, but now we see that we are actually increasing the total amount of waves that we are using. And this is where we say that this is where bandwidth is increasing. All right, this is what we mean by increasing the bandwidth. And when we increase the bandwidth, the speeds become faster. Just imagine this. Suppose that you have a road. All right, you have a road, and because the road is very narrow, it is getting congested, so the speeds of the vehicles cannot be very high because the roads are narrow. Then the government decides that okay, this road is getting congested, let us add wider roads. So once you have wider roads, the speeds of the vehicle will increase, correct? Speeds of the vehicle will increase because the carrying capacity now has increased. So this is exactly what happens with 5G. That here until now we were using a very narrow spectrum, now we are using a broader spectrum. This is what we mean by spectrum, that we are using more frequencies. All right, that is what. So when you talk about frequent spectrum allocations, for example, that the government allocates frequencies or allocates spectrum, so that's nothing but allocation of some part of that broad road that you have. So until now you had very small roads or very narrow roads, now you have broader roads, so carrying capacity increases and hence the speeds will increase. So that's why this is exactly what we'll see in the case of higher frequency bands, that we'll see that there will be faster data transfers that will be possible now. And although the range will be shorter, because we are talking about the small wavelengths, correct? We are talking about the small wavelengths, so small wavelengths obviously will have higher frequency, higher energy, hence they would not travel very long. So that's why these small cell towers, they have to be installed everywhere. That's why we have to densify the networks altogether. So that's why we see that large number of small cells are placed close proximity to each other to provide coverage. Then after that, we are using the MIMO. MIMO, something that we also discussed in terms of uh, Wi-Fi 6, where we are talking about multiple input, multiple output, and this is something that improves the signal strength and reduces the interference altogether. So multiple input, multiple outputs are possible at the same time. So just imagine that when we are talking about the same road, suppose that a divider has been made in the same road in a manner that a better traffic movement can happen, that the people who are going and people who are coming, they are getting their own spaces easily and they are able to travel well. So that is what we have done now. First we have improved upon the frequencies, increased the total number of frequencies, and now with the help of multiple input, multiple output, we are also improving upon the entire efficiency of the network. Then there is something called as network slicing. And with network slicing, what we do is that we provide better flexibility, greater flexibility and efficiency in managing the network resources. Now understand what exactly do we mean by network slicing. So if you see this, the entire network that we have, the entire bandwidth that we have, it has been divided into different parts. The road that you have, one part of the road has been allocated to only the movement of trucks, one part only to public transport, one part only to movement of cars, one part only to the movement of two-wheeler vehicles. So this is called as network slicing, that you have allocated each and every part of the entire spectrum to one kind of service or one kind of application. So, for example, high bandwidth can be given to smartphones. Then automotives can use something. Internet of Things devices can use something. So, in this manner, we see that this is how we can actually divide the networks altogether, and this will help. This network slicing will also help us in uh, improving the efficiency and the speed further. Then after that, there is this concept of edge computing. Now, in edge computing, what happens is that with the help of edge computing, we are able to reduce the latency and improve the application performance. Now, understand what is edge computing. Normally, what happens that let's say you have one server, all right, you have one server, and all the devices are connected to this one server. Suppose this, all right, there is only one server and every device is connected to only one server. So what happens then? The pressure on this server increases, and this pressure can increase the latency. What we discussed, remember we discussed about latency yesterday, that because of network issues it may cause some kind of delay. So that delay will happen in these kind of cases where you have just one server and every system suppose is connected to just one server. But instead of that, what can be done is that in this one server has a lot of local servers. This one server has a lot of local servers, and the end devices are connected to these local servers. Instead of being connected to the central system, now they are connected to this local server. So this is something which we call as edge computing. So with edge computing, we'll be able to reduce the latency altogether, because let's say whatever information was there in the central server, all that information is now available in the local servers as well. So you need not go to the central server now, and you can buy or you can basically get all your networks for from the local servers. So in this manner, we see that edge computing will improve upon the efficiency and reduce latency. So in case of edge computing, what happens is that you have local copies of the central system. All right, local copies of the central system which are connected to the end users, thus decreasing the pressure on the central system. So this is how we see that edge computing works, and edge computing helps in reducing the latency in 5G network. Then after that, there is something called as OFDM, that is orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. And this is something that helps in improving the efficiency and reliability of the wireless communication. So basically what it does is that it will divide the high speed data stream into multiple sub carriers and then transmit it simultaneously across different frequencies. So basically what happens is that until now, suppose that we were able to only use one kind of service or one kind of application at a time, and only one kind of packet of data was flowing at a time. But now with OFDM, we ensure that there are multiple services running parallelly, that all these things can happen parallelly, and this is ensured with the help of orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. I don't want to go into the detail of what OFDM is, because OFDM then is a very complex concept in digital communication. I don't know if I have any one of you who is from the electronics and communication background, but if you are, you know how OFDM works, and it basically becomes a part of your subject. OFDM perhaps becomes a part of your digital communication subject altogether. So I'm not going there because it will be very complex to even make you understand what it is. But just understand that this is where the entire system is being divided into multiple sub carriers, and all of them will be running parallelly instead of running sequentially one by one. So that is what OFDM basically does. Then we see that overall 5G networks have lower latency, and that becomes very very crucial, because then a lot of systems and a lot of different concepts that for us wouldn't be possible to run, all these things become possible because of lower latency. Even something like internet of things can work better with 5G, because 5G has way lower latency as compared to 4G or 3G, etc. So until now, this was not possible because the delay was there, and because of this delay or the lag in the network, we saw that it was not possible for these systems to run. And now that with 5G we are able to reduce that delay, reduce that lag, reduce the latency. Now we see that using all these devices and using all these various technologies becomes possible for us. And then lastly, network densification, something that we discussed about, that 5G networks basically are using network densification with the help of what? With the help of the small cells. With the help of the small cells, where we see that a lot of small cells will be put in every given locality, and that will help in improving upon the speed of the network altogether. So that is why all these features that we have with 5G, they improve the entire system and make it feasible for this kind of a system to get all the requirements. Now then, there is one small concept called as 5GI, and this 5GI is a concept that has been developed in India by the students of IIT Hyderabad and IIT Madras. Now, when it comes to this 5GI, this 5GI basically is where we are trying to introduce a modified form of 5G, This is basically a modified form of 5G, where we can provide 5G and improve its penetration with lesser number of towers. So this is what we are trying, and this is something that will help us in getting to the rural areas and all the areas which are not connected with 5G faster. So that is why this 5GI as a concept was introduced by the students of IITs, and then they had proposed this idea to the government, and government is adopting this idea so that it can be done faster, and we can get the networks running in all the areas possible. So it is something that works on low band spectrum. It uh, it will also provide narrowband internet of things connections. At the same time, it also provides interoperability with the existing networks, meaning that with the existing 5G networks and 4G networks, it will provide that interoperability, and hence we see that the end users will still be able to use them, and it will help in the localization of network, and the network can be provided to far off areas in rural areas, etc. as well. So that is what 5G is, and this is why it has been introduced altogether. Now, looking at the advantages that we get with 5G, first, faster data speed. It goes up to 10 Gbps. Ultra low latency, just around 1 millisecond of latency. That is the delay is just of 1 millisecond now. Connectivity for Internet of Things, efficient tele-education in agriculture, manufacturing, telemedicine, traffic management, smart cities program, increasing the GDP, digitization of economy. In all these things, 5G helps. And that's why I was saying that 5G goes beyond just the basic personal use that we have been using the internet for until now. It is something that she sees wider applications with regard to whatever we have done with it until now. So the problems, the issues that we still have with 5G, first, the investment required is high because we are talking about larger number of small cell towers. Spectrum is also expensive because you are buying more expensive, more frequencies, just like buying real estate. You buy a smaller piece of land, you pay less. You buy a bigger piece of land, you pay more. So here expensive spectrum means this, that we know that we need more frequencies now, wider frequencies now. So that is why it also becomes expensive. So spectrum becomes expensive because of the cell tower installations that are required, the infrastructure cost that is required. We see that investment also increases. Then there is an issue with the compatibility of the old devices, that older devices, especially the ones that you in India you had before 2021, most of the devices, they were not 5G compatible. Only few devices were 5G compatible. So now that 5G has entered India, it means that if you want a 5G connection and you have an older phone, then perhaps it doesn't work. And you have to buy a new phone to make 5G work. So that's also one of the issues, because this is something that also increases the burden of electronic wastes, right? It, or what we call as e-waste. So it increases the burden of electronic waste. Then after that, there is a lack of uniform regulatory policy right now, because different nations and different countries, all of them will have their own set of regulations. So international standardization still is lacking somewhere, although more or less all the countries are trying to follow the same standards, but yet it's not 100% safe and secure. So that is one issue that we have. And then the equipments that are using 5G, they might show a higher battery drain, because again, because wider frequencies are being used, energy consumption will be higher. So overall, if they are not efficient otherwise, the battery drain problems will be even more. So that's why there are all these problems that we have right now with 5G. So these are the issues that we need to think of, especially given the fact that right now we are in a nascent stage of 5G network. It is still being introduced in India. Slowly and steadily, we see that the density of the network is increasing, the penetration of the network is increasing, yet it is not at a place where we would want it to be. So we are trying to work fast in this particular direction. Read this question. This was asked in your 2020 paper. Please mark your answers. So 53% of you have marked the correct answer, but this was an easy question to mark for the rest of you. With reference to communication technologies, what is or are the difference or the differences between LTE, long term evolution, and VoLTE, voice over long term evolution? First is LTE is commonly marketed as 3G, and VoLTE is commonly marketed as advanced 3G. When did we discuss about LTE and VoLTE? In 4G. In 3G, there was no voltage. We discussed this, that you could either talk on the phone or you could use the internet. You could not do both at the same time. So that was not possible with 3G. So how can you say that this is advanced 3G? You can't. So this is wrong. This is wrong because voltage has nothing to do with 3G at all. And then after that, the second statement is LTE is data only technology and voltage is voice only technology. No, LTE is long-term evolution where either data or voice, correct? Either data or voice. And voltage says voice and data both at the same time. How is it possible that this is voice only technology? Please pay attention. This is what? Voice plus data simultaneously. And this says either voice or LTE basically is what? Sorry. LTE says either voice or data, not both at the same time. So this is also wrong. So correct answer will be D. That is neither one nor two. So I also understand that sometimes also it's a compulsion to think that how is it possible that both the statements given here are wrong. But it can happen, and we have seen certain questions in other chapters as well where all the given statements can be wrong. So you have to look at the statements on their merit, and please try to, when you look at these statements, think of what you have read, what you have been taught, and based on that try to mark your answers. So in that case, I would say that this was not a very difficult question to mark because we just studied this 10 minutes back. If let's say it was 10 months back, I can understand you forgot, but in 10 minutes these things should not have gone wrong. Now the next technology that we have is blockchain technology, but before that, any questions? Do mobile phone towers cause cancer, the radiation especially? uh, we haven't been able to establish anything as such. There have been one or two reports, one or two studies where somebody pointed out that this could be a possibility, but only when somebody is getting uh, exposed to radiations a lot. So that's why only with mobile phone towers that's not possible, and this is what 99.9% of the studies have shown. What government bid in case of 5G? So in case of 5G, see what happens is that the allocation of the spectrum will be done by the government. So it's like that. Now I have a set of real estate available. Anyone who wants to come and buy, they can come and buy. So now the auction will start, and then in the auction, whoever pays well, whoever pays more, they will get the spectrum, they will get the real estate. Similarly, there they will also be allocated certain parts of the spectrum so that they can use 5G networks for their company in that network part. What is low band spectrum? So low band spectrum means that we are talking about spectrum which basically has lower frequency. All right. So lower frequency meaning longer wavelength. Longer wavelength meaning longer coverage, better coverage. So this will be low band meaning that it will be cover more. It will be able to cover larger area. The high bandwidth or the high band frequency will not be able to cover larger area. So that is basically the meaning here. If you, I think you are asking in the context of low band spectrum here. So let me just write it here itself. So low band spectrum would mean that we are talking about lower frequencies. Lower frequencies. So lower frequencies would mean longer wavelength, longer wavelength, and longer wavelength will mean better coverage or better range, let me call it. It will give you better range in coverage. Network slicing. Network slicing basically is when the entire spectrum that you have, the entire 5G spectrum that you have allocated every part of spectrum for some kind of application. That you are saying that, okay, fine, 1 hertz to 10 hertz, only mobile phone. 10 hertz to 20 hertz, only Internet of Things. 20 hertz to 30 hertz, only, let's say, AI based applications. 30 to 40, automotive. 40 to 50, healthcare. So anything that you want. So that is called as network slicing, that you are providing one part of the network for one kind of application. Japan and USA using which network, 5G or 9G? No, 5G. Right now, the world is currently using 5G. I'm a player, so exposed to sunlight for a lot of time. So does it harm the skin? Mostly it wouldn't. Just that the precautions have to be taken. Otherwise, it's not that it harms the skin so much. Uh, Only ultraviolet B is what you should try to protect yourself from, because that causes the sunburns, and that is bad. Otherwise, UVA, because it has longer wavelength, it does not cause harm so easily. So it can cause harm only with prolonged, very prolonged exposure to the sun, where somebody is getting exposed to the sun every day for 5 hours, 6 hours, and that is happening for 20, 30, 40 odd years. Then finally they can actually get so much of sunlight that can be harmful. Otherwise, it's not harmful. 5G NB means 5G NB means 5G narrow band spectrum. All right, it means narrow band spectrum. So narrow band spectrum is something that will give you better speeds, higher speeds, and it will be able to be applicable for the technologies that need very fast internet. Edge computing is when you are, let's say you are just think, okay, just think in this manner, that suppose that in your city there was only one shop. All right, there was only one shop, and whatever you had to buy, you can only go to that shop and buy from that shop. So just imagine the kind of congestion that will happen. But now you see that the same shop has too many outlets, and every, let's say, every nook and corner has one outlet. So then in that case, you can go to your local shop in your locality, and you can buy the stuff from there. So in that case, what happens, it's easier for you to do that. This is what edge computing is, that all the things that was there only in the central server or the central system now has been passed on to many different servers simultaneously, so that the end users can only talk to or communicate with their uh, their part, or let's say their local areas or their local shops. So that basically is edge computing. Wherever I have gone, in most of the case, I've found 4G network is not working as what their company claim. Is they are they making us fools by providing 3G network in the name of 4G and providing 4G in the name of 5G? Actually, this is a big problem currently in India, because and this is something that was also raised by the even Supreme Court last year, that whatever is being claimed is not the reality. That 4G networks, we just discussed what the speeds of 4G networks should be, 100 Mbps. But practically, if I ask all of you that whether you are getting 100 Mbps network, practically I'm not sure if there is anyone in this classroom who's actually getting 100 Mbps network in your 4G mobile phone. So that it has been a big challenge altogether, that the mobile phone companies have not lived up to the standards that are there worldwide. But there is a flip side to it. If you go to Europe, if you go to the US, you'll find that the 4G and the 5G cost is way higher than the 4G and 5G cost that you pay in India. So for example, how we used to pay that, you would pay just for 1 GB of internet, you would pay 250 rupees and 300 rupees. That's the scenario even now in the European countries and even in the US. So that's why the internet there is very costly, and that's why people do not really they are not very digitally connected in the Europe as we are in India. So that's why that's the flip side of it as well. That on one hand, yes, you can say, you are correct in saying that in India the networks that we are getting, they are not up to the speeds that theoretically they should be. But on the other hand, these are the cheapest mobile phone networks available in the world. Mm, yeah. Network densification, I just told you. What's the difference between VR and AR? So VR and AR, see, in case of these two, actually, once a question in UPSC prelims also has come on VR and AR. So VR basically stands for virtual reality. Stands for virtual reality, and AR stands for augmented reality. Augmented reality. So understand the difference between the two. In case of virtual reality, what we are saying is that now the reality is virtual, meaning that you are entering the digital space. Meaning what? Meaning that let's say, uh, suppose, okay, let's say you had to do a tour of some place. Suppose that you wanted to visit some place, and you are not able to go to that place because of XYZ reasons. All right. So now that you are not able to go to that place, how do you do that? Suppose that you wanted to to visit a certain monument. Suppose that you wanted to go to Leaning Tower of Pisa, but you cannot go there for some reason. But somebody was able to give you a virtual tour of it. That you have these glasses, and with these glasses you can just walk. I mean, when you wear these glasses, you can just have the same experience of walking around that entire monument, instead of going there, instead of actually going there. So then in that case, what happens is, this is like virtual reality, that you have been there is a digital space that has been created for you, and you are walking in that digital space. So that is virtual reality. So you did not go to that place, but you are taking a digital tour of that place. So that's why this basically is called as virtual reality. So virtual reality is this, that you, when you are entering a digital space, all right, when you are entering digital space, this is what you will call as virtual reality. So on one hand you have virtual reality, and on the other hand we have this, I mean, when it comes to augmented reality. Now in this augmented reality, the things are different, because in case of augmented reality, what happens is that instead of you going into the digital space, what we'll see, that the digital space will be overlaid in the physical world. It will be overlaid into the physical world, into the real world. So that's why maybe uh, in one way or the other, let's say there are augmented realities available, where you see that. So let me just write also simultaneously, that when we are saying that it is virtual reality, understand the meaning of virtual reality. So in case of virtual reality, we are saying that where digital, or let's say the user enters the digital environment, enters the digital environment. And in case of augmented reality, the digital environment basically comes to you. So in this manner, what we are saying is that in a manner we are actually overlaying the digital information onto the real world. So this time the digital information overlays in the real world, in the real world. So that is the basic difference that we have between augmented and virtual reality. And now we also have a mix of the two, which is also called as mixed reality. Mixed reality. Actually, there is, incidentally, you have asked this question today, and this is in the news also today, in your newspaper, in the Hindu. It has an article which talks about mixed reality, basically something that brings together the best of both worlds. So if you know about the Vision Pro that has been launched by Apple last year. So that Vision Pro, the Vision Pro that you have, it Vision Pro is nothing but mixed reality. What they call as spatial computers, or what they are marketing as spatial computers, they are actually mixed reality goggles. And in this manner, they are trying to overlay virtual reality and augmented reality both at the same time in these. And if you are interested, it costs $3,500 if I'm not wrong, so almost 3.5 lakh rupees. Long incubation period. Incubation period, if you are talking about in terms of a disease, then incubation period is the total amount of time that it takes for any disease to start taking an effect after the pathogen was introduced into your body. That first the pathogen was, let's say pathogen enters the body today and starts taking effect today itself, then the incubation period is very short. But let's say if it starts taking effect 2 years from now, then it's a very long incubation period. Is there any differentiation to identify between 5G I and 5G? No, in India, you would not even know whether 5G I is being given or 5G is being given, because it will be overlaid. How is sparrow and other birds affected through 4G and 5G? See, these are only stories, and there are some here and there, one or two research that has said that could be a possibility. But as I told yesterday, also in most of the studies, it has been found that that's not the scenario, that's not the case. India is the third cheapest internet prices after Israel and Italy. Yeah, that's what I said. That one of the cheapest internet networks is what we have in India. How does government cut the connection of network and data in certain areas? It's simply, I mean, the mobile phone networks, and there will be either network jammers will be put, or although all the mobile phone towers that you have, they will not be operational. If they are not operational, you cannot do anything. The frequencies that are being used, they will be blocked. Augmented, please give example of AR. So AR is like augmented, where do I give real example? It's like holograms actually, where you would be able to observe those holograms in the real world. Suppose that many of the mobile phones also give you this, that you can make a virtual avatar of yourself, and that is something that actually can start walking with you. So that virtual avatar of you walking with you actually is nothing but augmented reality, because it is where you are bringing the digital world to your real world. Japan internet speed fastest, I think so. I'm not sure though. AR is nothing but Instagram effects like firing effect, etc. So I'm not really sure about Instagram, etc. I don't use it much. But yeah, you can say in a manner that a lot of those things that are given by them, which people many a times use in their stories, etc., that can be counted as AI. Hmm. So let's move on. Now we have the next topic, which is blockchain technology. Now, blockchain technology basically is a technology that has been in the news at least for the last 15 odd years. With Bitcoins, it became very famous. And because of Bitcoin, we saw that everybody understood that there is something called as blockchain technology. So, what do we mean by uh, blockchain technology? Let's try to understand that first. So block and chain, you have two words here. So blockchain, you have two words here. So when it comes to block and chain, meaning that you have blocks and these blocks are connected by chains. Now what do I mean? What do I mean by saying that there are blocks and these blocks are connected via chains? So now in this particular scenario, what this blockchain technology does is that it is called as a decentralized distributed ledger that records the provenance of a digital asset. Now, first and foremost, what do we mean by a digital asset? Digital asset is anything that has digital presence. It can be a video, it can be a music file, it can be a PDF file, it can be a virtual currency. So it can be anything. Anything that has a digital presence will be called as a digital asset. It can be a digital artwork that somebody made, a digital painting that somebody created. So all that will be called as digital asset. Now in this particular scenario, so that is what we mean by digital asset. So digital asset could be videos or music, or it could be PDFs, or let's say digital currencies. So all these can be called as digital assets. Now, in these kind of cases, blockchain technology can be used to transfer these digital assets. All right. So even if, for example, you get your PDF notes. So if I wanted, I can design a blockchain network and I can send you these notes via the blockchain network. If let's say I thought that these notes are very precious and I don't want anyone else to see them, I only want these students to see, I do not want this to be shared here and there, and I just want that it should not be leaked outside the system, so then I'll use blockchain, because blockchain is said to be one of the most secured and safe systems out there for any kind of digital transfers. So that's why you can transfer a video, you can transfer a PDF, you can transfer bitcoins, you can transfer music. All these things can be transferred via blockchain. So now when we say blockchain, the meaning of blockchain is that there are blocks. What are these blocks? These blocks basically are containing all the information. They are the ones which are securing your digital asset. They are the ones securing your digital asset. And then after that, they are connected via chains, meaning that all these blocks will have one set of information and they all become a part of a larger blockchain network where they are kept sequentially one after the other. Now, this blockchain technology, why it has become very important is also called as distributed ledger technology. How exactly it can happen is that, let's say if you are transferring money, suppose that I was to transfer money to my brother via blockchain network. So if I had to do that, what I'll do is that first I request for a transaction and a block gets created. A block for this transaction gets created, and this block then gets transmitted, or this gets broadcasted to all the nodes of the network. We'll discuss what are nodes. So first, this block is created and this block has the money. Let's say I had to give 10 rupees to my brother, or let's say I had to give one Bitcoin to my brother. So one Bitcoin is now there in this block. So this block now represents this one Bitcoin. And now it has been broadcasted to the nodes in the network. And all these nodes, they have to validate the block. They have to validate the block that they feel that, okay, this block is good. There is nothing fraud in it. This is okay. It is good to go. So then when all these nodes, they give their validation, then the block is added to the chain. The block gets added to the chain, and the transaction gets verified and executed. Now the first thing is, what are these nodes? What are these nodes, and what do we mean by them validating the transaction? Now nodes are users. All right, in a manner you can say that these nodes are users, or also called as miners. In terms of blockchain, they are also called as miners in any blockchain network. All right, so these are users or miners who are there in the blockchain network. And these miners who we have right here, these nodes that we have right here, they are completely anonymous. All right, they're completely anonymous. You don't know anything about them. So it's just like, for example, let's say I'm saying that I am transferring some money to my brother, and let's say you all in this classroom, you are the nodes in this network. Now I do not know you. The only thing that I see is your name, and I do not know whether that's the correct name or not. So that name also knows means nothing. So I do not know where you live, I do not know who you are, I do not know your email IDs, I do not know your phone numbers, I do not even know your real names, I do not know your Aadhaar card numbers. I don't know anything, right? I don't know anything about you. And you are the ones who are the nodes in the network. Now, as soon as I am initiating a transaction, a block is getting created, and a copy of block goes to all of you. So let's say if there are 100 people in this class, then 100 copies of this block gets created, and all the 100 get a copy of that block. Now it's your turn, and your job here is to validate this transaction, whether you feel that this is a legit transaction or is it a fraud transaction. So if you feel that it is a legit transaction, you will validate. Okay, fine. It looks like a good transaction, fair transaction. Let it happen. So let's say now all 100 of you, you have given your validation to this transaction. So as soon as you do that, this block now gets added to the blockchain. This now gets added to the chain. So this is how blockchain works. Now, what if any one of you invalidated the block? If any single node also invalidates the block does not get added to the blockchain. It's just like how you have the veto power in the Security Council in the UN, that any one country out of these permanent members, if they use their veto, then in that case, uh, any any proposal that has come in front of them, it gets squashed. So something similar happens here, that all the participating nodes, they have to give their validation. If they do not validate, I mean, if they invalidate, if they either they will not participate or they validate. If they invalidate, then the transaction gets cancelled. The transaction cannot go further. Now, how do you validate? Is it like a yes and no box that you click on a yes box and the validation is done? That do you want to validate will pop up on your screen, and you'll say that yes, I want to validate, and the validation is done. So there are two questions. So first is, how do the nodes validate? And second is, why would the nodes validate? How do the nodes validate, and why would the nodes validate? The answer to why is that you get paid. Right? Why do they get validate? Why would they validate? Because they get paid. So seems like a good enough reason, that you get paid for every correct validation that you do. So obviously you would want to do the maximum validations possible. So then this could have been an easiest job, could have been the easiest job in the world, that you just keep on clicking on yes validated, yes validated, yes validated, and you keep earning. Unfortunately, things are not that simple. How do they validate? Tells you why it is not simple. By solving complex mathematical problems. So I know more than half of you already lost interest, that by solving complex mathematical problems only you can validate these transactions. So now it is not that easy for anyone to just go and validate that. Even if you become a node, even if you are a node in any given blockchain network, to validate the transaction every time you'll have to solve complex mathematical problems. And these complex mathematical problems cannot be solved on your mobile phone or your normal laptops. You need very good high end networks, you need very high end computers which have huge capacities, can do the calculations very very fast, and they have to be kept running 24 hours of time. So first you have to spend a lot of money in getting those high end laptops or high end computing systems, plus at the same time you have to keep them running, so they'll keep on getting using a lot of energy every second. So that's why it's not easy being a node. It because you are spending on your own also a lot, and then you are getting paid for spending that much amount of making that much amount of effort. So that's why just remember, nothing in this world comes free. So if something is coming to you for free, it probably has something wrong with it. So that's why even being a node will not be an easy task for anyone. So overall, this is how the nodes will play a very very important role, being anonymous altogether. And that's why now when it comes to this entire blockchain network, it becomes a safe and secure network altogether. Also understand what are the various parameters with which it becomes a safe network and a secure network. When we are saying or emphasizing so much on the security aspect of blockchain, why exactly are we saying that it's a very secure network? First, it is a distributed network, meaning that all the network participants have a copy of the ledger. So we discussed about this, that every time, every block, a copy of that block will be sent to every node. So in this manner, every block's copy is available, the entire blockchain copy is available with each and every node in this network. So that's why the nodes will always know if something is going wrong with the blockchain network, and they can shut down something as quickly as somebody finds that something is wrong. So that's why they all have the copy of the entire ledger for keeping a complete transparency in this network. So that's why this distribution also means that this entire network is pretty transparent. All right. Then after that, the second concept is of immutability. Now, immutability means that the records are irreversible. What does it mean? It means that the blocks that have been added once to the chain, they cannot be removed. All right. So blocks once added, I'll write it here. It means that blocks once added to the blockchain can't be removed. So now this blockchain that is existing out there, every block that is getting added, it is just increasing the total size of the network. It's not that some other block is getting deleted or you can delete that block. You can't. You cannot. It's just like sending an email. That, let's say, suppose that you have sent an email to 5 people. All right. Now somebody has replied to that email, and then you also write something. But then you realize that the first email that you had written was wrong. Now, can you go back and change it? You cannot. Correct? You cannot simply go and delete it and be happy that now I have deleted, so there is no record of that email. Unfortunately, that doesn't work because it has been deleted from your inbox, not from everybody's inbox. You'll have to go to everybody's inbox and go and delete it from there if you really want to remove it. So that's why that's not possible, correct? And that too when you don't know who it is, when you don't know who these people are at all. So that's why blocks once added to the blockchain, it cannot be removed. So that is called as immutability, that every record is irreversible. It cannot be reversed. Once you have done it, you have done it. Even if you, let's say, have to make a correction, you'll have to add another block with correction, and then only it works. Then another very very important property of blockchain is that these all blocks are time stamped, meaning when the block was added to the blockchain is also noted. that a block was added at 5:30 p.m. on 21st of March. Then another block was added at 6 p.m. on 21st of March. Another block was added at 9 p.m. at 21st of March. So whenever the blocks are added, these timestamps are also becoming a part of the address of that block itself. And if somebody wants to, let's say, tries to hack into the network, somebody tries to modify a block. Let's say the block that was added at 5:30 p.m. All right, there was a block that was added at 5:30 p.m. on 21st of March. So then what happens is that somebody comes at night and tries to hack this system at 10 p.m. As soon as somebody tries that, this time will change to 10 p.m. This time will change to 10 p.m. Now, why is this important? Because there are blocks before and after this. Correct? There are blocks before and after this which are connected in this blockchain. Now, this block, let's say, shows 6 p.m. This block shows 10 p.m. This block shows 5 p.m. And this block now shows 10 p.m. Now, would it not be noticeable very easily for anyone? So all the nodes will now come to know that somebody tried something with this particular node, and they can shut down the operation of that node, or they can do something to that network to ensure that nobody hacks into the system. So that's why timestamping becomes very, very crucial, because so that's why all the transaction timestamps, they are also recorded on the block, and that also adds a level of security to this entire blockchain. Then it's a unanimous network. Unanimous, why? Because all the nodes have to validate. Correct? All the nodes have to validate. So all the nodes have to validate the block, then only gets added to the blockchain. Otherwise, it does not add it to the blockchain. So it's a unanimous network. Then it is an anonymous system, because all the participants are anonymous, or even if not, they are using their pseudonyms. So all these users, for example, you do not know the users, and not only the users, not only the nodes, even the participants, you do not even know who I am. Let's say if I am doing the transaction between the transaction is happening between me and my brother, you do not even know who I am. You only know that there is a username, there is a pseudonym that is being used. So you do not know who it is, right? So that's why there will be just random usernames that will be used by a lot of these nodes, and also the network participants who are there in this particular network. So that's why you would never know the identity of the user. So whether that Angel Priya is actually an Angel Priya, or is it somebody else acting like an Angel Priya, you would never know. So that's why it's an anonymous system altogether. Nobody knows anyone in this entire network. So that is why it is an anonymous system. So identity of the participants are either anonymous or they are pseudonymous, meaning that pseudonyms are being used by everyone. Then all the records are individually encrypted. So this is also very, very crucial, that these are all individually encrypted networks. And overall, each and every block will also be encrypted. That's also a thing, that the address of the block is also itself encrypted. And it is very, very important, it is programmable. Programmable meaning that you can program a blockchain according to your requirements. Now we know that bitcoins use blockchain, but it's not that only bitcoins use blockchain. Even if you are a legal firm, you actually can use blockchain to float the contracts or float the legal documents, so that nobody makes any change in those legal documents. And even if somebody makes a change, it will be known that somebody made a change. And that too, if you want, you may not keep the entire system anonymous. Suppose that a company wants to use blockchain, it wouldn't want that all the employees are anonymous. It would want to know the identities of the employees, so they can pick and choose what properties of blockchain they want to implement and what properties they do not want to implement. So that's your choice. That's why we are saying that it's programmable. All right, it is programmable meaning that we can choose some or all of the blockchain properties while executing any application or work. All right. So that's why we can pick and choose. We can choose that, okay, I want this property, but I don't want that property. I want this property, but not that property. So that's on me. So it's not necessary that each and every property that we discussed of a blockchain, you need to have all these properties, that you have to use all these properties. No, you can choose whatever properties you want. That out of these 10 properties, I only want 7. I don't want the rest 3 properties because that they are not suitable for my work. That's fine. You do that. So that's why this blockchain becomes very, very crucial, because now it is also programmable. So all these things mean that there are a lot of ways in which the blockchain network can be used. So that's why there are certain issues also that we have with blockchain, that sometimes there can be transaction cost. In case of bitcoins, etc., there are transaction costs. Then they use excessive energy. This is mainly because of the nodes systems. We discussed that these are computers that will use up a lot of energy. And then the complexity of the blockchain technology, it's not easy, because what we have discussed are just the basics of blockchain, and implementing blockchain would be very, very difficult unless you know the software well, you understand the blockchain well. So that's why a lot of people will not be able to use blockchain, even though it could have been very important for their work. And the storage problem, because as we discussed that the blocks once added, they cannot be removed. So the storage space that they are taking day by day is increasing. So that is also becoming a challenge, and especially for the nodes who have to keep a copy of every block in the blockchain, it becomes very difficult for them to function. So there are all these issues that we see currently with the blockchain technology. Now, this blockchain technology has been used in various different forms. So, for example, they are useful in cryptocurrencies. Now, in case of cryptocurrencies, what we see is that we are making the use of blockchain as a source, or as you can say, a technology behind digital currencies. Now, first, it was made popular by Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was the first thing that started using these cryptocurrencies with the help of, is a kind of cryptocurrency that started using blockchain. And blockchain, in a manner, you can say, got popularized because of Bitcoins, because of the value that Bitcoins were able to generate out of it, and the kind of uh, support it got from a lot of people worldwide, because people started looking at Bitcoin as the future of money. It got started getting projected as the future of money. And this is where Bitcoins became famous, because it was completely decentralized, completely something that cannot be tracked by the governments. That is one of the most important things, that it is a decentralized system. So there is no central agency which is watching. Correct. As I told you, that you do not know who the users are, the user does not know who the nodes are. So it's a win-win situation. I am working for my own business, you are working for your own business. So you have nothing positive or negative for me, I have nothing positive and negative for you. So that's why it's a trustless system. We say that it becomes a trustless system. That trust is not even a factor. I'm not saying that it is a system that you should trust, or it is a system that is not trustworthy. The trust is not even a factor. You are working for your own good, I'm working on my own good. So there is nothing that I have against you, there is nothing that you have against me. So that's why this kind of system, which cannot be tracked by the RBI, by the central government, it becomes a trustless system, and that's why it also got popularized. And today we see that the value of Bitcoins have really risen a lot. So today, if you know, do you know what, how much is one Bitcoin worth in today's currency in Indian rupees? Anyone who knows, anyone who follows? 42 lakhs was almost 3 4 months back. Yeah, almost 60 lakhs. I think it is somewhere around 56 lakhs. Yeah, 55, 56 lakhs. So this is the current value of one Bitcoin. And it has drastically increased. I mean, if you have followed the prices of Bitcoin, you might know this, that during the COVID time, do you know how much one Bitcoin was worth during COVID time in 2020, 4 years back? It was Yeah, it was around 3 lakhs. So one Bitcoin was 3 lakhs. So if you invested 3 lakhs in during COVID, just at the time of COVID, now that 3 lakh has become 56 lakh. But that, I mean, these things, when you hear it, uh, seems fine in stories, but in reality nobody really earns so much, because that there would have been one point when you would have withdrew, either because the values would have fallen a lot or the values would have jumped a lot. So even if it became 6 lakhs from 3 lakhs, you probably would have sold it back then. So you do not know how exactly the things can change. And that's why people who have uh, done their trading in bitcoins, they know the pain of trading in bitcoins, how fast the value changes of bitcoin. So you never know what will happen. Today it is 56 lakhs. There is, let's say there is some restriction that some government puts on bitcoins. Tomorrow you'll see that it will drop to 45 lakhs. So somebody who invested 56 lakhs would drain out almost 10 lakhs within a day, if at all these kind of decisions happen. So that's why the values keep on jumping and dropping, and becomes very unsafe. So my advice, please don't do trading in bitcoins unless you really understand what bitcoins are and how exactly all these parameters work. Now there is another concept called as NFT, called as non fungible tokens. Non fungible token, right? Non fungible tokens. Now in this particular scenario, when it comes to non-fungible tokens, this is also something that works on the same blockchain technology. Now these non-fungible tokens, the simplest of example that I can give you is that they are similar to tickets. Suppose that you have a ticket, whether you are going on a train, you're going on a bus, on a flight, or let's say a movie ticket, for example. So all those tickets will look similar, correct? Suppose that you are in a movie theater, so you get a ticket. So all the tickets would look similar if you are going to the counter and buying the ticket. Look similar, but your seat numbers will be mentioned. So those seat numbers are different. So although they all look similar, but they hold a particular value, right? They hold a particular value. Similarly, if it is a flight ticket or a train ticket, it might have your name and maybe your seat number, correct? Your name and seat number. So although it looks similar, all the boarding passes or all the train tickets would look similar, but because of the information written there, they are different. So they hold a value, correct? They hold a value. So that is an example, you can say, of a non-fungible token. So non-fungible token in terms of blockchain means that you can store artwork, collectibles, music, gaming. All these things can be done with the help of NFTs, with the help of non-fungible tokens. So for example, let's say I am an artist, I create a digital artwork, and I say that, okay, there are only 10 copies of this artwork to be made available. That's it. So now what happens? I am a well-known artist, so my paintings have a value. So what happens is that there will be 10 people who would buy the digital version of it, so that tomorrow it becomes even more valuable for them perhaps, and then they are holding a value, right? So if I, let's say, had sold them for rupees 10 lakhs, tomorrow it may so happen that they are, because it was a limited edition painting and there are only 10 people in the world who have that painting, then tomorrow maybe it has a value of more than 50 lakhs if it starts holding a value. So that's why artwork, collectibles, music, gaming, for all these things, NFTs can be used. The first tweet that was made by the Twitter founder, he actually had made an NFT out of it and sold that NFT. So that first tweet was made into an NFT. So that's why there is anything which is digital, anything that has a digital presence actually can be made into NFT and can be sold in the market. All of a sudden, we saw that in 2021, these NFTs all of a sudden started becoming very popular, and anything was getting sold for as an NFT. And that's why many people thought that, okay, these NFTs will start holding a lot of value in the future, but unfortunately that did not happen. Many of the NFTs that were bought at very high prices, now their prices mean nothing. Similarly, educational records in supply chain tracking, property ownership, health records, there also NFTs become important. And this is where NFTs really are very, very important, because now you have a digital provenance of it, you have a digital presence of it, and these are non fungible, not changeable, correct? they're not changeable, they will remain as they are. So it becomes safe if you can keep these records with the help of an NFT, with the help of a blockchain network. So that's why there are various ways in which NFTs can be used. Read this question. Please mark your answers. Hmm. So 47% of you have marked the correct answer. Let me discuss this. With reference to Bitcoin sometimes seen in the news, which of the following statements is or are correct? Bitcoins are tracked by central banks of the country. No, I told you, RBIs do not know. Nobody knows anyone. So how can somebody track it? That's the problem. That is the reason why nobody or no government in the world wants to make it legal, because they know there are repercussions to it. So obviously they cannot be tracked. This is very easy. Please pay attention. A and D should not have been an answer. If the confusion is between B and C, I can still understand. But first statement is a very easy statement to mark, because that's what we have been discussing. Completely anonymous system. A completely anonymous system cannot be tracked. That is the problem. So central banks cannot track it. We discussed that it's a trustless system. Nobody knows anyone in this entire network. So that's why it is not being tracked by the central banks. Second statement, anyone with a Bitcoin address can send and receive Bitcoins from anyone else with a Bitcoin address. Now, this is correct. And this is where we discuss that, okay, everyone will have their own addresses, everyone will have their own pseudonyms, etc. And they can transact, they can do these transactions. So, yes, this is doable. This is correct. Third is online payments can be sent without either side knowing the identity of the other. Even this is possible. So that's what I told you, that everyone is using usernames. So maybe you do not know the identity, yet you are transferring because you know that this is where you need to transfer, that this is the ID where you need to transfer. So you are doing that. So that's it. 2 and 3, both of these are possible. So correct answer will be B. Now, the next topic is supercomputers. So, okay, before going to super and quantum computers, if you have any doubts, please let me know. What is the need of digital currency and how DCT is helpful? I can't understand the motive for this. Basically, this has been called upon for people who do not want the central banks to keep a track of all their transactions. That we want, that I want to feel safer and secure with my transactions. So I do not want anyone to know where I am doing the transactions, who I am doing the transactions with, and all of these. So that's why it is something that can also be used very easily in illegal activities. Most of the drug money today, it flows via bitcoins or via cryptocurrencies. So that's why the governments of the countries are very scared of making it legal in any way, because they know the repercussions that it can have. Who made blockchain? So now this is where there is a lot of problem, that there is a person called as or named as, if you know this, Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, the problem with Satoshi Nakamoto is that nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, whether a real person or not, whether dead or alive. Nobody knows that. And even it is said that this name, Satoshi Nakamoto, may not be a exact correct name, because many claim that this SA stands for Samsung. This stands for Samsung. TO stands for Toshiba. All right. So it stands for Toshiba. So I mean this Toshiba, and then Naka. It is Nakamoto. Sorry, Nakamoto. So now Naka basically also comes from Nakamichi. Company named Nakamichi, and then Moto coming from Motorola. So it is also claimed that this Satoshi Nakamoto is not a real name, and that's why nobody knows the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, because he is the one who is supposed to have created bitcoins back in 2009. In 2009, created bitcoins, and this is where blockchains came into existence. What is a Bitcoin address? Bitcoin address basically is the address of every single Bitcoin or every single block of that blockchain. So everything will have an address so that it becomes an identifier of that blockchain in the network. How Bitcoins work? The same thing that we discussed in the working of blockchain, that is exactly how Bitcoins work. NFT in simple terms. This was the simple term. uh, See, just think of tickets, right? Just think of tickets, that in the ticket maybe 10 people have the tickets which all look the same, but every ticket will have their seat numbers, their names, and all these things. So that's why, although they look similar, they are different because they are carrying a value. Similarly, we are saying that in case of collectibles or artworks or digital paintings, etc., also we can do the same thing, that I am basically creating 10 copies of my artwork, and I'm sending it to somebody via blockchain. So these are the only 10 people who have the copy, and nobody else has the copy. So they are now carrying a ticket that shows that, okay, I am the one who has this painting. So they have that NFT with them. Similarly, for the educational records, that my educational records are kept safely, and I just have a ticket that says that, okay, this is where my educational record is kept. So similarly, everybody might have a ticket of their own, but that ticket, although looks similar, but they are different because they carry a different value. So that is what NFT is. Why blockchain developers don't use AI technology for blockchain verification as nodes? It's not going to be that easy, but yes, it will start happening very soon. Is blockchain technology an application of or software? It is a technology. It's not an application or software. It's a technology itself, which can be made use of. Just like artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a technology that you can use, that you can make use of. Nanotechnology is a technology. So here also blockchain also is a technology that can be used in some kind of application or software. Are bitcoins used extensively in transactions in the dark net? Yes, it is used. Feels difficult about blockchain technology to understand. It is, I mean, what I did was the simplest of explanations that I could have given, the simplest of the stories that I could have made around bitcoins or around blockchain. Otherwise, it's a very complex technology altogether. So just forget about what Bitcoin or what blockchain technology is. Just understand that that these are the, if let's say you are facing this problem, just think that this these are the properties and just know these properties and how these are being applied. That's it. Since Satoshi Nakamoto created bitcoins, then what is Satoshi, which is used as a fraction of bitcoins? So Satoshi basically is a fraction of bitcoins. I think 10 to the power of minus 9, if I'm not wrong, it's equal to 10 to the power of minus 9 bitcoins. So one Satoshi, or one as we call as sats. Why did government impose heavy tax just because of fear to lose control over hard-earned public money, or is it's increased electricity consumption, terrorist activities? No, nothing because of that. Just that they found a new source to tax, and because there were a lot of people who were making a lot of profit out of uh, trading in bitcoins, so government found that there was another way to make money. This is my explanation. They have other explanations. Since the node validation process in a blockchain network needs to be validated by each node individually, can this make it a time consuming process? It is a time consuming process, and that's why the transactions, the Bitcoin transactions, are slower than the normal UPI transactions that we do. So, compared to that, Bitcoin transactions are slower. So, you're correct. Toshiba and Nakamichi means they are company names. Samsung, Toshiba, Motorola, Nakamichi, these are all companies in the digital space. Why verification is required? Why mathematical problem? Won't this discourage people not to invest? As what if money is not verified and stuck? Also, what if math problem is not solved? So there are, okay, so two things. First, verification is required so that it also talks, it basically is also about the intention of the verifier or the node also, that they want to be here in this network. And this mathematical problem is not a random mathematical problem, but rather they solve for the address. Now the address that you have, each and every block, as we discussed, that each and every block has an address with the timestamp. Now what they solve for is actually the address of the blockchain. So once they find the address of the blockchain, they add the address of the blockchain to the blockchain network. And that address itself is a very complex address because we want to keep it encrypted. So it might be a 56 character encrypted address which somebody has to solve for. So that is what precisely they solve for. It's not a mathematical problem which is random in nature. And won't this discourage people from not investing? No, I'll tell you why. That let's say somebody just tried to be notorious that I just randomly invalidated a transaction. The other nodes in the network know that I was the one who did an incorrect invalidation. Now they can move against me and they can stop me from doing that in the future. Now that's what I said, that everybody here is for their own advantage. So if somebody is doing something wrong, nobody is anybody's relative and nobody knows anyone and nobody has any kind of animosity with anyone else. So that's why they would all be working for their own. So if somebody does that also, even they would be stopped from doing that. Meaning of this name via Google: Satoshi, clear thinking, Naka, inside, motto, origin of founder, foundation. Maybe, but this is a theory that Satoshi Nakamoto is all these company names and nothing else. A person with same name has the highest number of bitcoins. Yeah, the total net worth is supposed to be somewhere around $80 billion or somewhere around that, if I'm not wrong. And that's why nobody knows, because the person remains anonymous until now. Bitcoin remains in limited quantity in the market. Yes, it does. There is a concept called as Bitcoin halving. Every 4 years, Bitcoin halving happens, and then they reduce the total amount of price that you get as a node. So that then they are decreasing the value of your prices, and hence the number of Bitcoins, it always remains fixed. So I think there is only uh, a total space for 21 million Bitcoins, if I'm not wrong. How Bitcoin transactions started. So that's what I'm saying, that there are these people in Japan who created this system. A lot is still unknown about how it started. It started at a local level where they started doing digital transactions among themselves, and this is where it started to grow from. But there are a lot of things which are just unknown about the origin of Bitcoin and what happened at that point of time. Halving is similar to a stock split, if I'm not wrong. Actually, no, because what happens is that in case of stock split, the value of the stock price, when say let's say somebody gives a bonus, that there is a company in the market which is giving out a bonus stock. So what it does is that it decreases the total cost of that stock, and then it becomes easier for somebody to buy that stock. So for example, let's say there was a stock which was priced at rupees 500, but now the company has given 1 is to 10 bonus on that stock. So now that value drops from 500 to 50. So many a people who were not investing in that stock because it was 500 rupees, now they would invest in the stock because now it is just 50 rupees. So that is what happens in this case. But here, whenever Bitcoin halving happens, you'll see that the value suddenly starts rising. You just see that Bitcoin halving was, I think, uh, it was announced last month only, and as soon as it was announced, the value was somewhere around 45 46,000 45 46 lakhs, and it has just surged up to 56 lakhs just within like 10-15 days because of Bitcoin halving. So that's why we see that Bitcoin halving can have a different effect on the value of Bitcoin, which is not really similar to the stock price. So it's okay. So it's 6:40. Let's take a break here, and then the last topic of this chapter we'll discuss. So it's 6:40. So let's be back by 6:55. All right. Let's be back by 6:55 and discuss this further. Welcome back, everyone. The next topic that was all the computers that we use, they are called as general purpose computers, and they would have fairly low speeds as compared to a supercomputer. So these are computers that are performing at or near the current highest operational rates for computers. Now, in case of a supercomputer, we see that these are specialized computers. These are special purpose computers, and they would be made for one kind of application or the other. So maybe there is a supercomputer that is for agricultural studies. There is another supercomputer for genetic studies. Another supercomputer is related to space technology. So each and every supercomputer will basically be related to one kind of application. Now, in these supercomputers, when we see the computation of the speeds of supercomputers is done in petaflops. Petaflops. Now, flops stands for floating point operations per second. Now, when we say floating point operations per second, understand the meaning of this term, floating point operations per second. These simply, I mean, in very simple words, we can say that these are arithmetic calculations. Arithmetic calculations, for example, addition, subtraction, division, all these basically amount to flops, floating point operations per second. So meaning how many of these calculations can be done in 1 second will be called as flop. And peta, what is peta? How much is peta? Can you tell me how much is peta? Anyone who knows how much is peta? See, we start with kilo. How much is kilo? 10 to the power of how much? Kilo is 10 to the power of how much? 3. Correct. So kilo is 10 to the power of 3. Then comes mega, 10 to the power of 6. Then after that, you have giga. Giga is 10 to the power of 9. Then you have tera. Tera is 10 to the power of 12. And then comes peta. Peta is 10 to the power of 15. And even after this, there is another one, that is exa. Exa is 10 to the power of 18. So now when we say petaflops, so the meaning of one petaflop would be that there are 10 to the power of 15 calculations being done in 1 second by this system. That this system is capable of doing 10 to the power of 15 calculations every second. And right now, the fastest supercomputer of the world is Frontier, which belongs to the US. And this Frontier supercomputer is the world's fastest supercomputer, efficiency of 1102 petaflops, meaning 1102 into 10 to the power of 15 calculations in 1 second it can do. So that's why it's the fastest supercomputer in the world right now. Now, out of the supercomputers that we have in India, we see that we started with our supercomputing program back in 1987, and then after that Param series of supercomputers, they started to be developed by India. So overall we have seen that there are all these supercomputers that we have, and there are many supercomputers that we have designed. There are more than 20 supercomputers that we have, almost 30 supercomputers that we have right now in India. Now, overall, although when you look at the speeds of these supercomputers, these are not that great speeds. I mean, compared to the Frontier supercomputer, where we are saying 1102 petaflops, right now, India, normally the supercomputers that we have in India, they are operating at 3 to 4 petaflops. So some of them have shown better speeds like 6 petaflops and 10, 12 petaflops. But largely the supercomputers that we have in India, uh, they basically do not have speeds beyond 3 to 4. I mean, on an average, they do not have more than 3 to 4 uh, petaflops of speed. So that's why they actually are slow, you can say, in that manner. But in the same sense, I mean, when it comes to the speeds of these supercomputers, even 3 4 petaflops, I wouldn't say that these are uh, slow speeds by any stretch of imagination. So, for example, we have Param Aravat. So Param Aravat right now is India's fastest supercomputer, where we have seen the speed to be around 13 petaflops. Right, so almost 13 petaflops. So decent enough speed. So we cannot say that this is a bad speed. Yes, of course, when you compare it to the fastest supercomputers in the world, you might say that okay, it has very low speeds, but even 13 petaflops is a very good speed to have. So overall, we see that in India now we also have national supercomputing mission that we adopted in 2015, and as a part of national supercomputing mission, we want India to become a leader in supercomputing in the world, and we want to solve the problems for India, the problems that exist here, which can be solved with the help of supercomputers, or let's say the studies that can be done with the help of supercomputers, not only in India but also applications from around the world. So that's why applications wise in climate change studies, space and universe, material engineering, in pharmaceutical research, data mining, seismic analysis, atomic energy simulation, disaster management, in all these cases, supercomputers can be used. Wherever we need very fast data processing speeds, we can make the use of supercomputers in all these cases. So this is what supercomputers are. Now, coming to the last topic of this chapter, this is about quantum technologies. Now, quantum technologies otherwise can become very complex and difficult chapter to understand. So that's why there are very basics that we are going to study. Otherwise, beyond that, you can see in this picture and you can understand how easy studying and understanding quantum technologies can be. So now, first things first, what do we even mean by quantum technologies? Quantum technologies are technologies which are these are technologies based on based on quantum mechanics. All right, these are based on quantum mechanics. Now, what do we mean by quantum mechanics? All right, what do we mean by quantum mechanics? So quantum mechanics basically, I can say, I mean, just to oversimplify everything, I would say that this is study of the subatomic particles. So quantum technologies or quantum mechanics, this is study of the properties of subatomic particles. So electrons, protons, neutrons, etc., all these subatomic particles. So the study of these subatomic particles can be called as quantum mechanics. Now, quantum mechanics, the principles of quantum mechanics, the basic concepts of quantum mechanics are very confusing. They are very difficult to comprehend. And that's why this means that first time you read about quantum mechanics versus thousandth time you read about quantum mechanics, you will have the same expression on your face because it's something that is very, very difficult to understand. But there are certain basic principles that we should know of, and in just one line just know the definition of what they are, because these are technologies or these are other concepts which are very often in the news also. Unfortunately, these are technologies or these are concepts which are also in the news. So that's why, because they are in the news, they become a part of your current affairs, and that's why I would say that you should know something about them, that what exactly are these quantum technologies and the concepts that are shaping quantum technologies. So the first concept that we have here is something called as wave particle duality. Now, when we say wave particle duality, what is the meaning of wave particle duality? Understand this. Anyone who has seen this film, anyone who knows where this picture has been taken from. Hmm. So, so we have cultured people in this classroom who know which film this is. Yeah. So Nagin. Now, what happened in Nagin? That this character played by Sri Devi, she could get into two forms. She had the human form that you see on the screen right now, and she could also change into a snake form. This is exactly what subatomic particles can also do. They can exist as a particle, they can exist as a wave. So, wave signifying the snake and particle signifying the human form. So, that is possible with the subatomic particles. that they can particles such as electrons and protons exhibit properties of both waves and particles, meaning that they can exist as waves and they can exist as particles. For example, when we discussed about tunneling in scanning tunneling microscope, we were discussing about the wave nature of the electrons, that the wave nature can let them enter inside a material. Similarly, generally we count the number of electrons, correct? We say that there are 8 electrons in oxygen or 6 electrons in carbon, because we are counting them as number of particles. So the same electrons, they have wave like properties, and they also have particle like properties. So that's why basically we see that this is how uh, wave particle duality exists in quantum technologies. Similarly, there is another concept called as superposition. So in superposition, basically the particles can exist in multiple states at the same time. Anyone who knows about this film, Everything Everywhere All at Once? General knowledge question. Do you know why this film is famous? Yeah, it got 7 Oscars. So people keep the count. Good. So it got the best film award last year for, and this basically had shown the characters to exist in multiple states at the same time. So this is what happens with many of the particles also, that they can exist in multiple states. Particles can exist in multiple energy states at the same time. Now this is called a superposition. Now suppose that, forget about particles and how can they exist, and it's because many of these concepts of quantum technologies, they are very perplexing concepts, that it's very difficult to imagine at our position that how is it possible. We are saying that, let's say it's like saying that the same person is able to exist at various different places at the same time. Suppose that if you take my example right now. So right now, whether I am taking a class from which city, you do not know. Whether I'm sitting in Delhi, whether I'm sitting in Mumbai or Bangalore or maybe Chennai or Kolkata, maybe Karachi or Rawalpindi, you do not know where I'm sitting and taking the class. Just that you know that there is some studio somewhere in this world or maybe somewhere in this universe where I'm sitting and taking this class. So overall, until the time you know where exactly I am sitting and taking the class, for you I'm existing everywhere. For you I exist, you can say, in all the cities at the same time, because I am on your screen right now, so exist in your city right now. So this is superposition, where I am existing in multiple states at the same time, correct? So that is called as superposition principle. Now in this particular scenario, there is another principle which is related to superposition principle, is called as uncertainty principle. Now this uncertainty principle says that it is impossible to simultaneously determine the exact position and momentum of a particle, meaning that if you have any particle, you would either know the position of the particle, you either know the position of the particle, or you know the speed of the particle. You cannot know both at the same time. You only know the probability. So if the probability of knowing about the position is higher, then the probability about knowing about the speed is lower. If you know about the speed with higher probability, then you know about the position with lower probability. So that is how it plays out, that a particle, for a particle, or let's say on any subatomic particle, you either know about its position or the speed. You don't know both at the same time. So now in this uncertainty principle, what we basically there is a very famous example that we give of Schrodinger's cat, that you keep a cat in a box. Let's say, let me just give you a simple example. Suppose that you have kept a cat in a box, very cute, good looking cat in a box, and you have closed the box, and then after that you stab that box. So once you have stabbed that box, whether the cat was killed or not, you do not know until you open the box. Suppose that it is a soundproof box, so you do not know when you have stabbed through the box whether the cat died or not. Only when you open the box, you will come to know whether the cat died or not. Until the time you open the box, the cat exists in both the states of being dead and alive. That the cat is also dead, the cat is also alive. You only know about whether it is dead or alive when you open the box and see for yourself that you missed the mark and cat is actually alive. So, but until the time you open the box, you don't know. So that is exactly what we are saying here, that you either know about the position or you know about the speed. You cannot know about the both at the same time. If you know about the position with 100% certainty, you do not know the speed. If you know about the speed with 100% certainty, you do not know the position. So you can only know the probability of one of the two, is what this particular uh, principle is. This is what this principle is saying, that the particles, for the particles, either you know the speed or you know the momentum or speed, sorry, either the position or the speed. Then there is another principle called as entanglement. Now this entanglement principle says what? That if you have two particles which have become correlated in some way, that the state of one particle affects the state of another particle even when they are separated by a large distance. Understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that if there are two particles whose properties are connected, then even if they are separated by very long distance, even then their properties are connected. And if you do something to one particle, the other particle also shows the same thing. If let's say you are doing some modification in one particle, the same modification will happen in the other particle as well. And this is something that, again, the same famous scientist Albert Einstein, this is something that was first predicted by and shown by Albert Einstein, and he had used a very famous phrase for this. He said this is spooky action at distance. He called this as spooky action at distance. That there is something spooky happening at a distance. That even though there are these two particles which are separated by a long distance, yet their properties are connected in some way. That if something happens to one particle, the same something happens to the second particle as well. So it was very difficult for him to even imagine that something like this is happening. So if you know about this film, Judwa, whether you have seen, or may if you have seen any film where you have two brothers or two sisters who are twins. So many of these films where they have shown twin brothers or sisters, they have shown that if you do something to one of the two, the same happens to the other as well. That you slap one Salman Khan, the other Salman Khan also gets slapped, because they are connected. They are connected because they are twins, is what the theory of these films are. So 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 that's why this is what entanglement is. This is what quantum entanglement is, that even though they are separated by a distance, even then they actually have the same, they show the same qualities, they show the same properties, and they are connected or correlated in one way or the other. So that's a very unique concept. I mean, that's why not uh, something that we can imagine at our level, but yet it is something that happens at the subatomic level. So a very famous scientist by the name David Dhawan, the director of this film, he had shown this in his films as well. And there are so many other films where they have shown a similar concept. So this, famously by Albert Einstein, this was called as spooky action at distance. That although these particles are separated by distance, yet their properties somehow are connected. Then there is this concept of quantum tunneling. Now, tunneling is something that we discussed in scanning tunneling microscope, that we know that the particle can pass through a potential barrier even if does not have enough energy to overcome the barrier, that it will be able to break the energy barrier and enter inside the material. That is what we said, and that's why we were saying that in a manner they make a tunnel through this material, right? They make a tunnel through this material. And this also has been shown in this film Ant-Man, that they are able to shrink themselves and they get into something what they have called in the film as quantum realm, that they are able to get into that quantum realm, which is a completely different world altogether. Although in reality the world is not so similar as what they have shown there, but they have shown the concept of tunneling. They have shown the concept of tunneling and how basically they were able to get inside a material by shrinking themselves. So that is what happens at particle level, that the particles will be able to get inside a material using their wave properties. So by breaking the energy barrier that they needed to enter that, although they do not have that energy, yet they are able to enter. So that is called as quantum tunneling. So these are some of the basic concepts. All right. These are some of the basic concepts of quantum technologies. And in one way or the other, all these basic concepts have been used. All these basic concepts, we have seen that in multiple different ways, in multiple different technologies, we are right now trying to use these uh, concepts. Most importantly, we are using it in quantum computing. Now, quantum computing is a kind of computing where we are looking at speeds which are even going to be faster than the supercomputers. Whatever speeds fastest of the supercomputers have, any quantum computer perhaps would have a faster speed than the fastest of the supercomputers. So that's why quantum computing is seen as the next game changer after AI. That after AI, the next big thing that is going to be introduced to the world is quantum computing. So, quantum computing machines that use the properties of quantum physics to store data and perform computations, and they are supposed to be faster than the fastest existing supercomputers. Now, their basic memory unit is a quantum bit, or also called as a qubit. So just like how we have bits for normal computers, here we have qubits for quantum computers. That's why qubits for quantum bit. Now, there are two principles on which it is based: superposition and entanglement. So these two principles we discussed, that superposition is when they can exist in multiple states at the same time, and entanglement where all these properties of different materials, they are connected. So these two are the principles that are working behind the scenes in making quantum computing work. Now, when it comes to these qubits are very sensitive. Using qubits is not that easy. Heat, electromagnetic field, collision with air molecules, anything of this sort can actually cause the qubit to lose its quantum properties. So that's why, and this also has a name, it is called as quantum decoherence. Quantum decoherence is when the qubit might lose its properties. So that's why we always take precaution for this, that first and foremost we try to keep very isolated conditions. The temperature will be extremely low, near the absolute zero, meaning that almost at minus 270 degrees Celsius will try to maintain the temperature. Very isolated systems, so that air molecules do not come in the way, electromagnetic radiations do not come in the way. So we'll try to keep a very isolated system, and their qubits start functioning in quantum computing. And that too, in that regard, we always keep extra qubits, so that even if, let's say, there are certain qubits, because of one reason or the other, if they lose their quantum properties, we have extra qubits to fulfill their roles. All right, we have extra qubits to fulfill their roles, and that's why we call them as that's why this is quantum decoherence, and we try to solve this problem of quantum decoherence by having additional qubits, by keeping additional qubits, so that we can correct for the errors that can creep into the system. Now, in this regard, what we are saying is that the quantum computers are way faster. That quantum computing is going to be way faster compared to any normal computer. Because when it comes to qubits, qubit is able to do its computations simultaneously. So I'll just show you one basic example of what happens. Suppose that we have a normal computer, we have a normal computer versus a quantum computer. Now, a normal computer, it would use bits, correct? Bits are the memory units, and bits are what? A bunch of zeros and ones, right? There are a bunch of zeros and ones. Here, what are we using? We are using qubits. And qubits are also zeros and ones, all right? These are also zeros and ones only, so nothing different here. Now, if let's say we were using a 3-bit system, Suppose that we were using a 3-bit system, then the total number of states would be 2 to the power of 3. That is, total of 8 states will be produced. Same will be the case here also, that if we have a 3-qubit system, here also 2 to the power of 3, that is 8 states will be produced. That is 2 to the power of n. That you have 4-qubit system, it will be 2 to the power of 4. You have 5-qubit system, it will become 2 to the power of 5, and so on. So same goes for bits as well. Now what do we mean by these states? It means how are you using the combination of these 3 bits. So you have zeros and ones. So first it can be 000, then 001, 010, 100, then 101, 110, then 011, and then 111. So these are the 8 states. All right, these are the states that we are talking of. So there are all these states. Similarly, here also you will have similar states only. You have 000, 001, 010, 100, 100, 101, 110, 011, and then lastly 111. So these are the states that you are basically producing here as well. Now where is the difference then? Until now everything looks to be pretty similar. The difference comes now, that in a normal computer or even a supercomputer, all these states will be read one by one. So the computer first puts the first state, then second, then third, then fourth, then fifth, and so on. So one by one it will do the computation. So the computation basically is done sequentially. So here we see that sequential computation is done. Now what we mean by sequential computation? Let's say every state took 1 second. Just imagine that every state took 1 second. So how much will it take in total? In total it will take 8 seconds, correct? It will take a total of 8 seconds. This is basically what is happening in this case, because sequential computation is happening. But on the other hand, when it comes to quantum computer, they would be able to compute all the states at the same time. So in a manner, you would have parallel computation. Parallel computation. All right. Parallel computation, meaning that all this computation will happen in how much time? In just 1 second. Why? Because of superposition and entanglement. So superposition meaning that all these particles, they can exist in multiple states at the same time. So you can do multiple computations at the same time. Also entanglement, because all these properties are connected. So anything that you do in any one of them, the same can keep reflecting in all of them. So that's why, because of superposition and entanglement, we see that parallel computation is possible. So parallel computation basically happens because of superposition and entanglement. So that's why when it comes to qubits are way faster. That you make, instead of using 3 bits, you use 4 bits. It will take, the normal computer will take 16 seconds, but quantum computer still 1 second. You use 5 bits, the number of states will be 2 to the power of 5, 32 states. So it might take 32 seconds. Quantum computer will still take 1 second. So this is how you keep on increasing the time in normal computer, whereas quantum computer does not take extra time. So until 256 bits, meaning up to 2 to the power of 256 qubits, or 2 to the power of 256 states, there will be no change. There will be no change whatsoever in the time that it is taking. So this is how it becomes a very, very fast system as compared to what we are looking at with regard to any supercomputer or any normal computer. So that's why there are a lot of application areas where it becomes useful. And the same thing applies here. Whatever we discussed about supercomputers, that wherever you need extremely fast data processing speeds, you can make the use of quantum computers as well. Now today we see that there is this concept called as quantum supremacy. So quantum supremacy basically means it is uh, a situation when a quantum computer completes such a task within seconds that a normal computer could not have completed in its entire lifetime. So just imagine that something that a normal computer could not have done in its entire lifetime, a quantum computer might be able to do within seconds. And this is called as quantum supremacy. So what happened is, what this basically denotes is that Google actually had claimed that now they have been able to reach quantum supremacy, that they said that they have solved a problem using their using their quantum computers that a normal computer could have taken 20,000 years to complete. A normal computer could have taken 20,000 years, and their quantum computer has done it in seconds. This is what they claimed. But then IBM said that no, this is not uh, quantum supremacy. We have supercomputers that could have done this work in a couple of minutes time. So it's not that you've done a big job or you've created a lot of difference, nothing as such. So that's why this happened. And similarly, we saw that later, uh, IBM also came forward and said that now we have achieved quantum supremacy. Then Google came forward and said, no, this is not quantum supremacy. We can prove that our supercomputers can do this job within minutes. So please don't say that you have quantum supremacy. So this is something that we see, that this is an ongoing fight between all the biggest of the tech giants that we have, companies like Google or Meta or IBM, etc. They all have been trying their best to make quantum computers. They are already making quantum computers. They have quantum computers, but right now in under test scenarios. Now in India, we see that in budget 2020, we had announced a total of 8,000 crores for the next 5 years as a part of national mission on quantum technology and its application. And we have started understanding that yes, when it comes to quantum technologies, there are a lot of ways in which quantum technologies can help. There are a lot of ways where they'll be able to improve. So that's why uh, this is where the government of India also now starts to invest, and that's why there is a mission called as the quantum frontier mission, where the basic objective is to first build excellence in quantum frontier and to develop the various quantum technologies. So quantum computers, quantum chemistry, quantum communication, material, quantum sensors, quantum cryptography. So every technology related to quantum technologies, we want to invest in all that and we want to grow in all these sectors. So this is where we see that there is this quest mission that we have as a part of the quantum frontier mission. So quest is quantum enabled science and technology quest, to develop basically expertise in all the various aspects of quantum mechanics, and how exactly we can achieve success in all the various different types of quantum technologies. So there are four objectives that they have kept as a part of this quest mission. So these are the four objectives. So first is about quantum computers and quantum communication, etc. Then development of quantum enhanced technologies, and then also algorithms, techniques, etc., with regard to quantum information. So that's why there are all these there things that they have kept as objectives. These are science objectives, so not very important directly for your examination, but quantum frontier mission and what we want to do and how we are going forward now, these things can actually become important. Read this question. This was asked in your 2022 paper. I need 100% correct answers, please. Some reason poll is not working. Yeah, okay. What happened? Did you see the poll? I think some issue happening with the poll. It's visible. Okay, so poll is visible to you. It's not visible to me, so I'll not even know what has been marked. Poll is active. Great. 95% correct answers. Who are the rest 5%? So the term qubit is mentioned in the context of quantum computing. So that is what we discussed, that qubits are quantum bits, right? These are what? These are quantum bits used in quantum computing. Hmm. So it's not visible to me, but you all are saying that 95% of you got correct. So wonderful that at least by the time we are ending the session, you started getting all the correct answers. Right. So then we have our last chapter, that is intellectual property rights. Now, intellectual property rights as a chapter, I would say, is more oriented towards the mains examination. It has less to do with prelims and more to do with the mains examination. Now, what exactly is this chapter? Let's try to understand that first. When we are saying that we are talking about intellectual property rights, what do we mean by intellectual property for which we need these rights? So, what is intellectual property first and foremost? So, intellectual property basically is the creation of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic work, designs and symbols, names and images, which are used in commerce. Now, the meaning is, so when we say creation of the mind, now the meaning of creation of the mind is that something that we have created, right? Something that we are creating will be called as the creation of the mind. Now, when we say creation of the mind, it could be because let's say I had an idea and I was the one who invented this pen, this stylus that could write on these boards or on these screens. So then what happens is that this becomes my intellectual property. Similarly, somebody creating a vaccine becomes an intellectual property. Somebody writing a story becomes an intellectual property. Writing a song becomes an intellectual property. Making a PPT becomes an intellectual property. So all these will be called as intellectual property wherever we are saying that application of brain went into making it. So that's why we'll say that this is intellectual property. So that's why for vaccines and life-saving drugs, paintings, murals, etc., all these things will be called as intellectual property. So why do we need intellectual property, or why do we need to protect intellectual property? Now, think of this as a question in your mains examination. Why do we need to protect? So when we think of why we need to protect the rights, you'll always think of the creator, that we need to safeguard the creator, that we need to create a capacity to create and invent. The protection will encourage further innovations, research and development can happen. Because what happens, let's say I'm the one who invented this stylus that now you could write on the screen, and I did not have any rights to it, right? There was no protection for this intellectual property. What happens then? There will be hundreds of companies that will go and just replicate it. So I'm not generating any value in the market. Correct. By the time I have gone into the market, maybe there are others who have just copied it and they have also entered the market. So then in that case, I am not holding any value as such. But what if my rights for making this pen were protected? Then what happens? Then others who also want this pen will either have to acquire a license from me, or they'll have to take a permission, or maybe they'll have to buy it from me directly. Then in that case I am getting something out of it. I invested so much of effort and money into making this pen. I would want something out of it. If not anything, at least the acknowledgement of the work has to come. So if these are the things that creator gains, that if not financial gain, if not something that helps in further research and innovation, then at least the acknowledgement of the work is very, very necessary. So that's why creators get all that. But it's not only the creators who get everything, it's not only them who are at an advantage from the protection of intellectual property, but also the consumers. It can lead to economic growth. It gives us better and more efficient products. It leads to better reliability in publications, music, and film as well. We see that these things will bring in better commerce. Now, understand how. Let's consider mobile phone. Now, today, when you look at a mobile phone, you might see whether its cameras are good or not, or whether what is the memory size, or how much RAM and how much storage space, and what processor is being used. So we talk about these things today in the mobile phone. But was mobile phone made for all these things? No. The mobile phone was made for what? Talking. So that whenever you are not even at home, you can still talk on the phone. That was the basic purpose of the mobile phone, correct? But then slowly and steadily, consumer demanded that what if I was able to send messages as well? So then SMS feature comes in. What if I was able to use the internet? Internet comes. What if I was able to click a picture? Camera comes. So we see that each and everything that the consumer in one way or the other demanded, the companies fulfilled all that, correct? Companies fulfilled all that. And now today mobile phone is not only about the mobile phone. The gain is not only of these mobile phone companies, but look at the entire world. The entire world right now revolves around this mobile phone. The entire economy of nations are built on this mobile phone, correct? And that's why it's not only these companies that are growing, or only the service providers are growing, but there are so many self-employment opportunities that have been created. Just go and look around. There are so many mobile phone repair shops, which are self-employment opportunities that mobile phones have created. So that's why mobile phone has created an entire economy around itself. Today, we talk about mobile governance or M governance, and everything can happen on the mobile phone. So that's why this is how the things have changed, because consumers demanded, and because consumers demanded, the companies fulfilled, the creators fulfilled, and because their rights were safeguarded, they could do more, they could invent more, they could create more. So that's why we see that we start getting all that. And also at the same time, better and more efficient products is what we get in the market. And you'll see that today the same, let's say, let's keep carrying on with the mobile phone example. Today the mobile phones that you have in the market, they are way more stable than what it used to be. That they'll last longer, will not start facing problems instantly, and you might see that they are decent enough in lasting if you want to make them last, correct? So now we see that there is a reliability in the product, and the mobile phones are also fulfilling all the promises and everything that the consumer demanded. And the ones who are not able to fulfill the consumer demands, they perish. And you have many examples in front of you. First and foremost, what happened to the biggest mobile phone manufacturer, Nokia? Nokia, for 10 years, for one decade, for 15 years at least, it just ruled the world. But after that, it did not change with changing times. When the world was moving into either iOS or Android, this is when they decided that they would launch Windows Phone. Now, it's not that Windows phones were bad, they were good. But the consumer did not approve of it, did not like it a lot, and the Windows phones just perished. And with that, Nokia could not keep up with the competition. Later, they came back with Android phones, but they could not sustain in the market. By the time the entire market had just blown up. Similarly, you look at some of, let's say, there were Indian companies like Micromax, which did fairly good business in the early part of their existence. But then Chinese companies started to flood the Indian markets. And these Chinese phones had similar prices, maybe even cheaper than them, and they were better and more reliable. They were showing, they actually were more efficient, better battery life. They would not hang a lot. So there would be all these things that happened, and then they completely sidelined the market that Micromax had. BlackBerry, another example, used to be a prized position, used to be a status symbol, but BlackBerry is nowhere to be seen today. Could not grow with the changing times, could not grow with the growth that the mobile phone sector saw. So that's why we saw that there are a lot of these things that happened, and all of them, they have not been able to keep up. Similarly, in case of publications, music, and film also, there also we see that consumers gain. because what the consumer wants is what the consumer gets. That if you are the one looking for the massive films, you will get that. If you are the one looking for better stories, you'll get that. And we see that kind of a change, that during the COVID times, a lot of people also get uh, exposed to the content outside India, and a lot of, let's say, Western films, Hollywood films, and also, let's say, got exposed to better stories, and they started demanding better stories. And we see that today in OTT platforms, etc., that they have flooded with a lot of films which have unique storylines, which normally would not be made in India. So we see that all these changes happened because why? Consumers wanted it. We see that in the books as well. Today you go to any random bookshop, you'll see that you'll find a lot of books related to personal finance, a lot of personal finance books, something that is telling you how to invest, how to make money, how to save money, how to uh, uh, maintain your finances, etc. Why? Because there, India today has a lot of young Indians who are working, who have money in their hands, and they want to save and invest. So that's a market being created, and hence the similar. We see that these kind of books are there in the market. 10 years back, 15 years back, you'll see that there was a huge market all of a sudden for Indian fiction. That until now, English fiction used to be Western writers, but now came Chetan Bhagat with simple English, maybe grammatical errors, but simple English, something that everybody would read and understand. So all of a sudden, what happens, that a market gets created for Indian fiction, and then a lot of Indian fiction writers, they also start to push into this market, and they also create a market for themselves. So we see that all these things, you'll see that there are these market forces and the consumers who are demanding and getting it. So that's why it does not only help the creator, but it also helps the consumer. So that's why when it comes to why do we need intellectual property rights, or what is the need for protection of intellectual property, this is the answer. That it basically has a positive impact on both the creator as well as the consumer. So this is how the things are. Now, there are different types of IPR. There are 6 different types of IPR. We have patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, industrial design rights, and geographical indication. So these are the 6 types of IPR, and one by one we'll try to understand what these IPRs are and how these are different and how they are important. So first one is patent. Now patent basically are set of rights granted by a sovereign state exclusively to an inventor for a limited period of time in exchange for detailed public disclosure of an invention. When is a patent being given? Patent is given to a new invention. When you make a new product or a new process, all right, both for new products and for new processes, you get a patent. All right, so that's why new ideas, new products, new processes, new inventions rather, they are the ones that get the patent. Now who will give the patent? Government will give. Which government? Government of that country. Where is it valid? Only in that country. So for example, let's say you go to government of India and file for a patent. All right, so then what happens is that first they will check whether something similar exists or not. So if they find that okay, this is unique and there is no other patent in this particular segment, then they might grant you that patent. Once the patent has been granted, for getting that patent granted, first you have to do a detailed public disclosure, meaning that you have to give each and every information about your invention. Each and every minutest of the information has to be submitted to the government. The entire process that you used, what is the research that you did, what are the case studies that you did, what are the test results that you have, what was the exact process that you used, each and everything, what are the materials that you're using. So everything around that invention you will have to submit to the government. So that is called as detailed public disclosure. And in return, if everything is unique and it is new, the government grants you the patent. Now when the government of India gives you the patent, the patent is valid only in India. You cannot go to Pakistan and ask for the same patent. You cannot. The same patent will not be valid there. If you want to have a patent valid there, you'll have to go and ask the government of Pakistan, whichever it is, whether it is uh, uh, the democratically, so-called democratically elected government or the army, Sharif, or it is the army, nobody knows. But you'll have to go to that government and you'll have to ask for patent. And if they grant you patent, then that patent is valid in Pakistan. Similarly, you have to go to US and get the patent from the government of US so that it is valid in the US. So that's why it is valid. We say that when it comes to the patents, we say that these are territorial rights, exactly for this reason, because these are territorial rights, because it is only valid in the country where the patent has been granted. All right. So first thing, that becomes very crucial for us to understand. And then there is a definite fee that is paid periodically so that you can maintain your patent. And then once the patent has been granted, you have the exclusive rights to do whatever you want to do with the patent. So for example, if I have the patent for this pen, then I have the entire ownership over what I want to do with this pen. If I want to, let's say, sell it in the market, I can do that. I can ask for bidders, and anyone who wants to buy this technology from me, you can come and buy this technology. I can maybe give out licenses that, okay, fine, you are somebody who is allowed to make these pens, and you will pay something to me for that. Maybe I don't want anything to do with it, and I'll just go and keep it in my locker, and the world will never see this pen again. So that's my choice. Whatever I want, I can do that, because I have the exclusive rights. uh, I have the exclusive rights over the pen. So this is basically how the patents work. And the protection basically is given for up to 20 years. So that's why overall it is for limited period of time. So up to for 20 years it will be given, and then after that you can, if you want, you can try and get the patents renewed. So renewing of patents are also possible. So if you want, you can renew the patents, and if you don't want, you don't. So for example, many of the technologies, maybe in 20 years somebody else would have replicated independently also, without taking your help, without copying you. They might have figured out how to use this technology on their own, and they might have done it, and they have not asked for patent. They can start selling in the market. So then by that time this patent will mean nothing, and then after that, perhaps 20 years later, you don't want to extend the patent anymore. But many a times you do, many a times, because it holds some value in the market, you don't want to lose out on that value, and then after that you will want to get the patent renewed. Now then there is this concept which is called as patent evergreening. There is this concept called as patent evergreening, where what we see is that many of these patent holders, and this is especially true in the context of pharmaceutical industry, that many of these patent holders, they, what they do is that they would make small changes. All right. They would make small changes in their product, and they'll say that this is a new invention and give me another new patent for this. So that is what we mean by patent evergreening. So that's why this is a strategy that is used by a lot of pharmaceutical companies, which basically tries to extend their market exclusivity over their drugs beyond the expiration of the patent. So that's why they can make just slight modifications in the original product. Maybe they will just change small part of the formulation of the drug, or maybe the delivery mechanism, and maybe it will be combined with another drug, and they can do all of these things. And then after that they'll say that now this is a new patent, so I should get another patent for this. So this is called as patent evergreening. All right, this is called as patent evergreening. And why patent evergreening? Because then they'll have that exclusivity in the market, so they'll have higher market value, right? They'll have higher market value, and that's why they can keep on increasing the profit margins, because now they have established product, they have established process, so they are not doing anything new. They'll keep on increasing their profit margins because they are producing at very low cost and they're selling it at a very high price. So that is why they'll keep on doing that. So and this is called as patent evergreening. So that's why this is basically a strategy to extend market market exclusivity beyond the original expiration of the patent. All right. So this is basically what we call as patent evergreening. This is called as patent evergreening, and this is something that specially applies to the pharmaceutical industry. Especially, we have seen that in the pharmaceutical industry, this applies, and a lot of these companies, they are very notorious to in the sense that they keep doing this all the time. That they'll make very small, insignificant changes in their drug or vaccines, etc., and they'll say that now this is a new patent and I should get a new patent altogether. And in this manner, they try to keep on extending their patent periods. Then after this, we have copyright. Now, in case of copyright, copyright is basically given for some kind of work like literary work, dramatic work, artwork, paintings, etc. So all these things will get copyrights. So there are different brackets that will get copyrights. So for example, all the literary works such as novels, poems, plays, reference works, newspaper articles, they can get copyrights. Then computer programs and databases, films, musical composition and choreography, then artistic works such as paintings, drawings, photographs, architecture, etc., sculpture, all these will get copyrights. Advertisements, technical drawings, all these can get copyrights. Now, copyrights will be given for what? How is it different from a patent? Patent is given for ideas. Even if you have an idea, even if you have just a prototype ready, you get the patent. You can get the patent. So it's not necessary that the entire product is already ready and then you get the patent. You have the idea, you know how to implement the idea, you have a prototype, you can get the patent. Applying copyrights. In copyrights, it is given to the work. All right. It is given to, that's why we say that it is given to expression of ideas. Patent will be given to ideas. All right. Patent will be given to ideas, and copyrights will be given to expression of ideas. Expression of ideas. So that's the basic difference between patent and copyright. So that's why you cannot say that I'm thinking of writing a book, please give me a copyright. You write the book and then you come back and take the copyright. So that's why expression of ideas. Unless the work has been completed, you cannot get a copyright on that. Similarly, something which is natural or a natural science cannot get a copyright. Mathematical concepts cannot get a copyright. You cannot say that until now nobody has a copyright over 2 plus 2 equal to 4. So from tomorrow 2 plus 2 equal to 4 belongs to me. And anyone who wants to use 2 plus 2 equal to 4 will have to take a permission, and then only I'll allow you to use 2 plus 2 equal to 4. You can't do that. So mathematical operations, etc., they cannot be copyrighted. Anything natural science cannot be copyrighted. So that's why copyright protection extends only to expressions and not ideas, procedures, or methods of operation or mathematical concepts as such. So this is how copyrights are also different from patents. Now, overall, when it comes to copyrights, there are basically two types of rights that are getting covered here: economic rights and moral rights. Economic rights is where you are getting financial incentive out of that copyright. So that is called as economic right. And on the other hand, we have moral rights. Moral rights basically protect the non-economic interests of the author. So let's say acknowledgement of the work. Correct. Acknowledgement of the work is a very, very important thing, and that's why this counts as a part of the copyright. So acknowledgement of the work will be uh, counted as copyright. So it will be counted as a kind of copyright. So that's why we see that there are all these things that are basically being covered as a part of copyright. And that's why moral rights, they will protect the personal relationship between the creator and the work, even when they do not have the rights anymore. So that's why we see that this is where we see that overall acknowledgement of the work goes to moral rights. Now, after this, we also have something called as trademarks. Now, in case of trademarks, we see that this is like a sign which is capable of distinguishing the goods or services of one enterprise from those of other enterprises. It can be something as simple as the logo. That if you see this particular logo of Byju's, then you know that this belongs to Byju's. That this must be something. This must be a class conducted by Byju's. So something similar is called as a trademark. Now this trademark is not only about a sign or just a logo or something that is distinguishing the products and services of one enterprise from all the others that exist in the market, but at the same time it can be a lot of things. For example, if you see this, the shape of the bottle, the shape of the bottle also becomes a trademark. That this is a trademark shape of a bottle of a certain company, right? The name, the way they write the name, that also becomes a trademark. Then the kind of symbol that they are using, the slogans that they are using, the color that they are using, all these things, they actually become a part of trademarks. So anything can be counted as trademark. Anything that sets aside the product or service of one company or enterprise from all the others will be called as a trademark. So, and then once they apply that as a trademark, it cannot be copied. It cannot be copied because now legally nobody is allowed to have the same shape. So for example, this is the Coca-Cola bottle. So now the shape of the Coca-Cola bottle cannot be uh, copied because it is covered as a part of its trademark. The way they write their name cannot be copied because it is covered under trademark. So that's why we see that, and many a times you'll see that these kind of products come in the market, that instead of Adidas there will be Abidas, or there will be, instead of Puma there will be Uima, and there will be some, they'll try to write the name in a very similar manner. But if somebody is doing that legally, they are not allowed to do it, because if they are copying the way the name is being written, the way the name of the company is being written, they're not allowed to do that. So all these are covered under trademarks. Then after this we have industrial design right. Now in case of industrial design right, we basically are talking about the visual design of objects and all the aesthetic parameters which are not purely utilitarian in nature, meaning that when we are only looking after the aesthetics of the product which have nothing to do with its functionality. Now let's say a car. There are so many cars in the market. Every car have a different functionality, but every car also has a different aesthetics. It looks different, and many times that also matters. Maybe somebody has made the best car in the world possible, but it doesn't look good. So if it doesn't look good, chances are that you'll not go and buy it. Same goes for a lot of products. Every time you'll see that a new mobile phone is being launched by a company, there will be a first look that they'll showcase first. So they are not telling you what the properties are or what the features are. They are first showing you the product, that okay, my camera angles change by these degrees this time, so this is a new uh, phone that now I have made. So that's why we see that there are all these changes that will be made by the companies, and these are all something that amount to industrial design right, something that has nothing to do with the functionality of the product. It's just about the aesthetics of the product. So example, Batman mask. Now, Batman mask has to do only one thing, that it has to conceal the identity of Batman, that nobody should know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. But look at the different masks that have been used in various comics and TV shows and films over the years. You'll see that every time there is some difference, right? Every time there is some difference, although the functionality is the same. That by covering half the face, nobody will recognize that it is the same person, right? So this is an example of industrial design right, where we are only talking about the aesthetics of the product and which has nothing to do with the functionality of the product, but it holds a big value in the market. They will spend a lot of money into ensuring that this is a product design that will be accepted by people in the market. Sometimes if it is not accepted by people, it might completely just fall in the market flat, if at all people don't like how it looks. So liking how it looks is also a big part of the entire industry. So that's why you'll see that people will be hired from best of the institutes just to ensure that they design well. For example, let's say we have the National Institute of Design, and a lot of people will be uh, recruited from there with very high packages just to design the product so that they can get consumer approval, and that also matters a lot in the market. Then after that, there are trade secrets. Now, in case of trade secrets, what we are seeing is that this is where we are trying to keep an information secret. When would we keep it secret? When the information is commercially valuable. Similarly, it should be known only to a limited group of people, and also reasonable steps can be taken by the rightful holder if these information are leaked in the market. Now, when you do that, you would do that when there are common things that you are using in a certain way that you don't want anyone to copy. Simple examples: Coca Cola and your Maggi masala. Now, Maggi masala is what? Maggi masala is just a spice mix that you have. Now, this spice mix can be made by anyone if they knew which are the ingredients being used and in what proportion these ingredients are being used. They can make it. You can make it at home. It's not going to be very difficult to make Maggi masala at home if only you knew what is the exact mix that they are using, what are the exact ingredients that they are using, how are they mixing, in what proportion are they mixing. You don't know that, so that's why that will be kept as a secret, because otherwise it is naturally doable by anyone. So that's why that will be kept as a secret, because Nestle Maggie has its entire market because of its spices, because of it this Maggi masala. If not for this Maggi masala, it's like any other noodles. So if let's say tomorrow you take away the Maggi masala, do you think Maggi will have the same hold in the market as it does today? It will not, because Maggi masala holds a value. Correct. So similarly, in case of Coca-Cola also, you know that there are so many soft drinks, Thumbs Up, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, they all look the same, but there are slight variations in their taste. So that slight variation in the taste comes from how they are being manufactured, and they'll try to maintain that taste because they have the market because of that taste. And again, they are not doing anything exceptional that somebody else cannot copy. If somebody else knew how to copy, they would have done that. So all these are examples of trade secrets where you are trying to hide information which would be commercially valuable. Otherwise somebody else can copy it and you cannot stop them from doing it, right? So that's why trade secrets. Then there is geographical indication. Now, in case of geographical indication, we say that this is like a sign which is used on products that have a specific geographical origin or possess qualities or reputation that are due to that origin, that due to their certain origin, they are holding a value in the market. And there are many examples. Today in India, I think there are, if I'm not wrong, there are total of 573 geographical indications that have been given by India. Somebody can please go and check whether I'm correct. I don't want to publish wrong information on screen. So I think there are 573 GI tags that have been given in India until now. So what do we mean by this? This is a sign that is used on products that have specific geographical origin or they possess qualities or reputation that are due to that origin. Now, it could be a food product, it could be an agricultural product, it could be handloom, it could be a certain way in which textiles are being made. So, there it could be anything. All right. All of these will be counted as geographical indication. So, for example, basmati rice, Kadaknath chicken, Nagpuri oranges, all these are examples of GI tags. So, and we have seen that every state also has certain number of GI tags. I think Maharashtra and Karnataka are two states which have the highest number of GI tags, if I'm not wrong. So that's why we see that they also become commercially valuable, because if somebody says that okay, these are Nagpuri oranges, then probably they have a better value for you. Whether they are or not, you would never know. But if they are being sold as Nagpuri oranges, you know that they have better hold in the market. And that's why we have also seen that there have been fights. An example is Roshogulla or Rasgulla, as we call it, or Rasgulla, as we call it. There are different names in different parts of our country. Now, there has been a fight for Rasgulla, and the fact that who does Rasgulla belong to? Does it belong to Odisha, or does it belong to West Bengal? So there has been a controversy on this, that whether it belongs to uh, Odisha and whether it belongs to West Bengal. So the government of India found a midway. They gave a GI tag each to both. So Odisha also got for its rasgulla, and West Bengal also got for its rasgulla, so that they can be happy. But now, just look at how much of discussion has happened on it. That first, I think it was West Bengal that it was given the GI tag, and then there was a lot of debates that started happening that it should have been given to Odisha, because Odisha has this particular rasgulla, uh, which is called as, if you know this is called as the Pahala rasgulla. And I wouldn't say rasgulla, it is called as Rashgulla there. So Pahala Rasgulla is the specific type of Rasgulla that actually is made in Odisha. And when you look back into the history, you'll find that the history of this Rasgulla in Odisha goes back in 12th century and 20th and 13th century, where it would be given as prasads in the Jagannath Puri temple. So that's why it has been a part of their culture, as has been shown in some of the scriptures, that it has been a part, or some of the data that is available with us, that it's been there since 12th or 13th century. Whereas the other rasgulla that you see, the white rasgulla that you famously see, that's the Chena Rasgulla. And the Chena Rasgulla, Roshogulla, as we call in Bengal. So the Chena Roshogulla, it belongs to West Bengal, and this is where we see that the origin of this kind of Rasgulla goes back to the 18th century. So both of them have to be seen separately, because they both have their own properties. Their tastes are different, their textures are different, they feel very different. I like both of them, and I don't want to be here on this slide for very long, because and then I feel like eating. So we see that there has been all those controversies, because we see that. And see, when it comes to Odisha and West, let me change the slide first. When it comes to Odisha and West Bengal, these are basically the same region. Now they are different states, but historically these are the same regions. So you cannot say, or whether there was an overflow of information or not, or who it belongs to, etc. It's very difficult to say. But we see that, okay, there are some instances where it has been listed that it might have been present even in the 12th or the 13th century. So that's why there are all these aspects of Rasgulla. So that's why we see that there are all these things. And so just know this, maybe. Huh. Now coming to the national policy on IPR of 2016. National policy on IPR. Now, why, first and foremost, we need to understand, why did we need this policy? Why did we need this policy? Did we not have any laws or any acts with regard to all these intellectual property rights? We did. We have the Patents Act, we have the Copyrights Act, we have the Cinematography Act, we have the Farmers Rights Act. So there are all these acts that have been there. But the problem is that they are all independent. They're not connected. There is no one policy framework governing each and everything related to IPRs in India. And then that's why the need for having an integrated policy was felt. And this is where we see that in 2016, a national policy on IPR was brought forward. And there were a lot of things, and we'll discuss about some of the issues also that we were facing in the past. And because of all these issues that we're facing internationally as well, largely, that all led us to understand that we need a very robust uh, policy on IPRs in India. And then finally, a national policy on IPR in India was introduced in 2016. So what are the highlights of the policy? First, the tagline that was given to the policy was Creative India, Innovative India. That this is where we see that now, we see that an integration of all the acts happen. The Cinematography Act, the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers Rights Act. So all these kind of acts, they will be now taken simultaneously as a part of this policy. So this policy will now start governing each and every type of IPR that we have in India. And now all the at the same time, it also solicits financial aid to develop IP assets with the help of financial institutions, whether the banks or the venture capitalists or maybe angel funds, etc., or even crowdfunding mechanisms can be used to gather the funds that are required for developing IP assets in India. So that's why all these mechanisms have been kept as a part of this policy. Similarly, it also emphasizes on financial support, especially to the relatively less empowered groups of IP owners, like craftsmen, farmer, or weavers, artisans, who do not have exposure to how much this IPR can mean. Now, just to give you an example, why something like this is very, very important. So that you have rural banks or cooperative banks that can give you IP friendly loans. Suppose that a painting form or an art form is being developed in a remote part of the country or a backward part of the country. Let's say if we take example of Madhubani paintings. Now, what would happen to Madhubani paintings otherwise is that the artists who are related to Madhubani paintings, they wouldn't know how much of value they can generate. So they are maybe living in the rural areas. Suppose that a company, a multinational company associated with artworks, goes to that rural area, talks to an artist, and buys their painting, or gets, let's say, the rights for their painting, asks them to sign a contract or something, and gets the right for that painting. And maybe, let's say, they paid them rupees 1000 for that painting. The artist will be happy. Getting 1000 out of that painting might become a good thing, wonderful thing for them. What happens then? Now, this international company has the exclusive rights, copyrights over this painting. They might create 100 copies of this painting and sell each and every one of these paintings for maybe 10,000. How much did they make out of it? A total of 10 lakh rupees from one painting, for which they paid how much? 1000 rupees. This is a reality. This has happened a lot of times. So this is where a national policy on IPR comes in. That we also want to ensure that people are aware. Creating awareness about this is also very, very crucial, and providing them financial support so that they can become IP owners. They can start generating money off their intellectual property, which perhaps is not happening until now. Similarly, the Department of Promotion for Industry and International Trade, DPIIT, or earlier what was known as DIPP, has been given the role of monitoring body for all the works that are being done related to IPR in India. And at the same time, when we look at some of the other areas, we see that it also is about taking actions against attempt to treat generic drugs as spurious or counterfeit. Now, what we mean by generic drugs, we'll discuss that later. We'll discuss some of the issues related to IPRs in India, and that is where we'll discuss about that as well. And then after that, also a review has been kept every 5 years. That there will be a review conducted after every 5 years to ensure that IPRs are safe, to ensure that these IPRs are also, or let's say this policy also changes and evolves with time. So everything new. For example, today we know how fast in the last 5 years AI has come into the picture. Now, how do we look at that? That also has to be thought of, and that's why a review every 5 years. Now, the benefits of the IPR policy. What are the various benefits? So, first, of course, it is the interest of the rights owners shall be safeguarded. That is one very, very important thing. And that's why we see that any kind of infringements of intellectual property rights also will be dealt properly. Then we have seen that a reduction in the window for trademark registrations also has happened because of this policy now. It used to take more than 3-4 years sometimes to register the trademarks, which has drastically been reduced to within a month or so. Similarly, we see that there are multiple direct and indirect tax benefits now, which are available under the various laws, so that we can promote research and development through specific procedures and norms in the country. So that also helps a lot, because these kind of tax incentives or concessions, they will also help in the growth, because many of these IP owners, they would be spending a lot of money. They would be spending a lot of money in making these products, in doing the research, in doing the experiments. They would be using a lot of money there. So that's why from that perspective also it becomes important to give them these incentives, so that they can keep working without thinking of the financial constraints that can develop. Similarly, we'll better cover the films, music, industrial drawings, etc. as well. Books, publications also will be covered better. Then at the same time, we see that in semiconductors, designs, geographical indication, everywhere the IPR policy will be able to cover everything much better. Then also encourages for improving access to healthcare, food security, and even environmental protection. Now, this is very, very important, because now what you will see is that many of the financing that happens in intellectual properties, it happens on the basis of whether or not you are carbon neutral, whether or not you are doing everything for the environment, or if at all your products and your processes and services have been found to be environmentally bad, degrading, then maybe you'll not even get the finance. There is legit something called as climate finance now, and that's why you'll see that a lot of these companies, they will have their own auditors, and the role of the auditors is not to just look at the finances of the company, but to look at the carbon footprint of the company. These auditors will just look at the carbon footprint of the company and try to understand whether this company is environmentally friendly or not, whether they are eco-friendly, so-called eco-friendly or not. And if they are not, perhaps they will not give them the fundings. So that's why today we see that it starts encouraging environmental protection as well, because your money lies there. And that's why unfortunately you'll see that many of the companies, without even being eco-friendly, they will claim that they are eco-friendly. There are a lot of products here and there in the market where they are being claimed that they are eco-friendly, but in reality they are not. And there is a concept which is called as greenwashing. Greenwashing, the concept of greenwashing basically is this, that this is a kind of a deceptive marketing strategy where the company or the organization, they try to market themselves as being environmentally friendly, but in actual reality they're not actually environmentally friendly. They're just projecting themselves to be environmentally friendly. So that's why you can say that this is a deceptive marketing practice where a company or an organization organism sorry organization projects itself as eco-friendly, but in reality is not. So in reality it is not eco-friendly. Now, when we talk about this greenwashing, there are many examples in front of you. You go to many of the biggest clothing brands, they would have their stickers, etc., saying that it is eco-friendly, sustainable clothing, and all that. So, sustainable and eco-friendly are the most overused words today, and unfortunately, many a times they are not, because textile industry, the reality of textile industry is that I don't think there is any single industry that wastes so much of fresh water as textile industry does. You just go to Google and search the amount of fresh water that textile industry of this world wastes, amount of water that is used. So that's why that's enormous amount of water. You'll find that it's enormous amount of water that are being used just to produce one piece of clothing. So that's the problem. That is where the problem lies, that they waste a lot of water, but they would have done something else and they'll say that now we are eco-friendly. They would not talk about what they are doing wrong. They'll only talk about something that might have done, even a small contribution of theirs. They'll say that now we are eco-friendly. But unfortunately, that's not the reality. Similarly, two of the biggest mobile phone manufacturers, one belongs to the Android world, one belongs to the iOS world. Both of them, what they say, that they are not giving the charging adapter with their mobile phones because they want to become eco-friendly. How are they eco-friendly? Because they are saving plastic. It could have been of plastic, they are saving that material, and that's why they are eco-friendly. They're not wasting energy in manufacturing of that charger. Now the problem in this argument is that I need a charger to charge my phone. Correct? I need that charger. So if you are not giving me the charger, I'll probably go and buy the charger from somewhere. The assumption here is that if I'm buying the 15th version of that phone, probably I have already the 14th version or the 13th version of the phone. That's why I'm buying 15th. So I already have the charger, is the assumption. But that may not be the case. Maybe I'm new to this entire ecosystem, so called ecosystem. So then in that case, I need that charger. And if the company doesn't give me the charger, I'll have to buy that charger. Now, suppose that I go on Amazon, I buy a charger, and I say that I need 1 day delivery for it. What happens next? They have to ensure that it reaches me in 1 day. How does that happen? Suppose that I am staying somewhere. Let's say I'm staying in Bangalore, and their warehouses are in Delhi. Then what happens first? First, from their warehouse in Delhi, there will be a truck that will carry the charger to the airport. Then the airplane will carry the charger from Delhi to Bangalore. Then from Bangalore airport, a truck will carry it to the warehouse in Bangalore. Then from there on, there will be somebody who will pick up the charger on their bikes, and they'll come and deliver it to me. So just imagine the amount of wastage of fuel that happened here, the amount of carbon dioxide that was emitted in this entire process. So are they eco-friendly? The correct answer is no, not at all. It's not an eco-friendly practice, even if they claim so. Unfortunately, because we don't realize what they're doing here, we believe them. We believe them, oh, they are doing something good. They are actually making a difference. No, they're not making any difference. Sorry. So unfortunately, these things happen in the biggest of the companies, in the textile industry, in the electronics industry, everywhere we see that, and this is what we call as greenwashing. So that's why these kind of policies, they help us save against these kind of issues. That's why this is also one of the benefits that we have out of this policy. So that's why this policy aims to create a conducive environment for investment by attracting both domestic and foreign investors through a stable IPR framework in the country. Now, one thing is about the challenges that we are facing as a part of that we are facing in India right now. That overall there are four types of challenges that we are facing. What are these challenges? Just try to understand these challenges. One challenge is with regard to something called as compulsory license. So there is something called as compulsory license. All right. So sorry. Compulsory license. So this is one problem. Then there is one problem with regard to our section 3D. Section 3D of the Indian Patents Act. This is another problem that we have to discuss. Then there is third problem, which is related to data exclusivity. Data exclusivity. And then there is the fourth problem of enforcement. So there are these four problems that we largely have right now when it comes to the national IPR policy, or in general the IPR frameworks that we have in the country. So these are the four basic issues that we are facing. So let's try to understand what these issues are, all right, and how these issues are. Oh, it's already 8:25. Hmm. This, I'm left with almost half an hour to 40 minutes of the chapter. Okay, can we do this? Tomorrow onwards, you have environment and ecology, if I'm not wrong. Yes? Tomorrow onwards, you have environment and ecology. Yeah. So I'll do one thing. Uh, uh, I'll talk to, I think Basavraj sir is taking the class. So I'll talk to Basavaraj sir. What if I take 5 to 5:30 and I'll ask him to start from 5:30? Does that work? Saturday, unfortunately, I cannot take the class because my Hindi medium classes are starting from Saturday onwards. So I'll not be available on Saturday. Can we do this instead? That I start at 5 o'clock, 5 to 5:30. Perhaps I'll need 30 to 40 minutes of time to complete this part, and then after that, I'll ask him to start his classes. Yeah, Saturday. That's what I mean. Saturday, unfortunately, I'll not be available because my Hindi medium classes will start from Saturday onwards. Okay, let's do that because otherwise, unfortunately, I don't want to just extend it for the sake of completion today itself. It's better if you come with a fresh mind, and there are these small things that we have to cover. So we'll discuss the issues that we are facing right now in India with regard to the compulsory licenses, and then we shall be able to uh, cover this class altogether. Please repeat about the class. I'm saying that I'll start from tomorrow. I'll talk to Basavraj sir, and I'll start at 5 o'clock. So 5 to 5:30, I'll take the part, and 5 to 5:30 maximum up to let's say 5:40, I'll take the part, and then I'll ask him to continue afterwards. Hmm. So let's do that. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Let's discuss those questions, and then let's wrap up the session. You also have the webinar. I think it's Thursday. Yeah. Please read the full answer. A Bengali named Nabin Chandra Das. Nabin Chandra Das was the one who actually had invented the Chhena Rasgulla. So invented Chhena Rasgulla for the first time in 1868. Yes, when his wife told him to make something round, white, and so soft, sweet for her that when she eats, it should melt in her mouth itself. Yeah. So that's happening even today with us. So these kind of descriptions will take me to a sweet shop after the class. We really enjoyed your lectures. Thank you so much. Bikaneri Rasgulla, yeah, famous in Rajasthan. That's true. Yeah, others who do not have any question, you can leave. That's okay. Cyborgs. I don't think cyborgs as a topic is very important, but okay, fine. I'll tell you. Are you a Bengali? No, I'm not a Bengali. Whenever somebody asks me, where are you from, etc., I remember the dialogue in Chak De India, where Shah Rukh Khan told everyone that you need to understand that you are an Indian. You are an Indian first, and then after that, your regional identities or religious identities matter. Nothing matters before being an Indian. And that's especially in your case, you all being the aspirants today, it really matters in that sense that you start thinking in this direction where you're thinking about the Indian society and for the betterment of the future of India. Bikaneri rasgullas also, yes, I have tried them also. It's very different in composition. Uh, but I'll make a controversial statement that if you are from these areas of eastern India largely, then you probably will not develop the taste for Rajasthani Bikaneri rasgullas. So that's the case with me. What to do as not able to comprehend a lot of topics on previous class. So I understand that the first part that we discussed, some of those topics are highly technical in nature, so it needs your revision. Please go back and do that. And again, tomorrow we have a session. If you don't understand even after that, you'll always have my email ID, and this is where you can always contact me, rashesh.kumar@byju's.com. Leaderboard. All right. Leaderboard. Hmm. Yeah. So this is the leaderboard for today. Wonderful. A lot of you have all the correct answers. Oh wow, that's good. Hmm. Sometimes I saw packaged drinking water look the same like Bisleri, but named some like at Bister or Bis. Yeah, that actually happens. So that's what I'm saying. That these things are actually I mean, these things are unlawful. I mean, you are if you are copying it without taking the permission, you're not allowed to do that. Leaderboard again. So this is the leaderboard. Let's see this. Class PPT plus additional reading material plus current affairs enough to crack the prelims? I really hope so. Um, but in UPSC, I don't dare to say these things. But yeah, I try to cover each and everything that is possible, and everything that I think in one way or the other would come in the examination. So that's why, I mean, historically it has been enough. Historically it has been enough, and even in the tougher papers like the last year's paper, out of 11, 12 questions that had come, I think there were only two questions that I had not taught as a part of either the static areas or the current affairs sessions that I had taken. So, but I would also say that at the same time, it was fortunate that I actually had taught everything that they asked. And some of these things I never intended to teach. Just that how I keep telling stories once in a while, I told some stories and they asked it. Before taking the class, I really have had a fear of science and tech because of you, I fell in love with it. Thank you so much. These are the things that amounts to a good sleep at night. All right. So let's end this here because anyway you have the webinars now. Let's start at 5 o'clock tomorrow, and for the first half an hour or so, we'll first complete these leftover areas, and then we shall move forward. And you would start with your environment and ecology classes after that. Thank you very much. Good night.